budget workshop. Tonight, staff, department heads will be presenting to you a balanced budget. Tonight, all the department heads will be making presentations in their individual areas. Sheree and I will start off with an overview, then it will come back to me for economic development building. It'll go back to Sheree for finance. Then next will be Jason Patton for Parks and Rec, followed by the chief for the police department, and ending up the evening with Mr. Lauer for public works, engineering, and transit wastewater facility. So that will be the order tonight. I would recommend that for public engagement, that at the end of each segment that you ask if there's any public comment from anybody watching, just so we have the opportunity to answer those questions when it's fresh in their mind.
At the end of each section?
At the end of each section, yeah. Instead of at the very end, because it wouldn't be very fair for somebody that has a question about economic development to have to wait to the end, and then, we have to go back. And so at least we can take care of this while it's fresh in their mind. For council, obviously, we encourage questions or comments at any time during our presentation. Feel free to ask. The budget packet that you have in front of you has a high-level view of each area, as well as a detailed accounting of every account line item for every revenue and cost center within our budget. So you have everything in front of you. And so if you want to, it's really up to you guys how detailed you want to get. If you have questions regarding specific line items within a certain division or department, feel free to ask. That's what the department heads and myself and Sheree are here to answer. So basically, we're here to get through everything that you want. If we don't get through it tonight, then staff's more than welcome we'll set up a continuation of this meeting to another night, continue to another night to come back and either finish it or answer any questions or do any follow-up that council may wish. If you have something that the council wishes to add, then we will go back and we'll see if we can add it. We will come back and let you know what that impact is for it. If there's something you wish us to not do, then yes, we can do that. We can exclude it from the budget. So we're here as pretty much of an interactive, informal process as much as possible to give you guys an opportunity of where we're at and what we're doing.
Would you like the questions after you're done with your section, or would you want us to interrupt?
I would leave it up to you. I think that if you have questions during the point, I may be going from, let's say I'm briefing you on our ongoing economic development activities, and I'm going through describing, let's say, 4 activities that we have. I think it's more than appropriate that after I get through describing that one activity to say, I got a question regarding that, can I ask about it? So it stays fresh in your mind, and we can stay on that topic if you wish. So really the staff, this is, your budget. This is just my recommendation. I think we keep it as informal, as much questions as you want to ask as possible. Just keep in mind that I would, the longer we go, the more chance we have of going to another night. And like I said, we're not opposed to that at all. We're hoping that we get to a point that we can approve this budget on June 17th, and that we'll be ready to go. Now, mind you, this budget is these are projections. These numbers may change throughout the year. We have put into place some fallbacks if we see that, let's say, the economy and the basis economy is not opening up. We do have some things we can hold back that can relieve our cash flow. We are presenting a budget that does use some reserves, MEASUREV, but those are for projects, not to fill general fund activities. We are not recommending that we use any sort of unallocated reserves to balance this budget. And we do believe that with the CARE Act, or even without the CARE Act, we do believe that we are not going to be in the deficit at the end of this budget cycle. We are not going to be far ahead in a positive fashion as we thought we were, and we'll get to that slide here in a minute. So that's where we're at, and if there's no questions to start off, then we'll get going on the presentation.
Go ahead.
Okay, this budget, as I said earlier, will be a balanced budget. This does not include any cost of living raises for the employees. It does include their typical merits. In other words, we're not asking for merit freezes. This does include the typical merits, but it does not allow for a cost of living. We also are not going to be budgeting any bonuses. However, we will recommend to City Council that we follow the same format as we did last year. Let us see how the budget's working, how our revenues are projecting, and then we can make that decision to come back to council in November for a Christmas bonus like we have the last couple of years. So in this, we'll be having staffing review. We'll be discussing Measure V budget. We will talk about the impacts of the earthquake and COVID-19 on our budget, both FY20 and FY21. As you can see, this is our just a very, very high level overview showing that our FY21 proposed budget will be $41,000 in the black. However, it does use $2,085,000 in budgeted reserves. Those budgeted reserves are going to be Measure V projects, police department vehicles or vehicles for the police department, as well as projects for Public Works roadway. As you can see here, we're estimating about $2.5 million in revenue over expenditure, and that primarily is Measure V.
Can I go back one? On the fare box coverage, 50/50, and then none for this year. Is there a reason for none?
Yes. Oh, I'll let Sheree answer that.
We actually met Fairbox this year.
Wow.
The reason that we,
Close.
sorry, we met Fairbox this year because of a recalculation that we had to do for GASB 68. So it changed the salary portion of the transit budget. So we did end up meeting the Fairbox ratio.
But it does not mean that we will make it every year. We still need to proceed with our project of going electric so we can save money in fuel and stuff.
So because you said it was primarily Measure V, like there's a big difference between that bottom line.
There is some general fund in there. There is funding in there from general fund from positions being vacant during the budget process. We did have some positions in public safety as well as in other departments that were vacant for a couple months that added to a salary savings. And we also had purchases, general fund purchases that we did not do. I think it was primarily because of the COVID-19. We scaled back considerably.
And just as a side note, I don't know if it's the new lights, but our screens are harder to see up here.
Mine's pink.
Yeah, they're pink. I don't know.
I can read it though.
Yeah.
There we go.
Is that better?
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what happened, but I mean, you can see it. It's just,
It's not the lights. It's
I don't-
not those lights, it's the screen.
Yeah. My screen's fine.
I didn't know if it was lights or what, but I was like, sorry.
Doesn't bother me.
I tried to adjust autofocus.
I mean, you're a girl, pink should be fine. I can live with it.
Mine didn't even notice.
Oh, that's much better. Thank you.
I did it.
Okay.
Thank you. Much better.
Thank you.
I just knew we were going to be staring at it all night long. So I was like,
Okay, we broke it down, general fund by department. Something unique is the police department now is 43% of our general fund, whereas probably well over a decade ago, it was more than 50%. That is partly because of rebalancing. We're doing more road projects which would be represented in that interfund transfers, gas tax, RMRA, Measure V, which is 25% of our general fund. So as you can see, the police department is the biggest expense that we have for general fund.
Is that standard across most cities? And
Yeah.
like, are we within the normal range of that? It's
Actually, I think in this case, we're probably below average
below
in that
average?
regard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you looked at years past,
Yeah.
I was playing with the mic, so.
is everybody on?
Yeah, then general fund by expenditure, as you can see, personnel is 56%, services is 18%, materials 2%. So you can see by our budget that a good portion of our budget is for our employees. So our staffing, we have 126 equivalent full-time positions. Most of our budget is salary and benefits. Staffing review, we are adding 2 wastewater pretreatment inspectors. There are some things that we should be doing that we haven't been doing, and these positions are going to fulfill that. Mr. Lauer can discuss that further during his wastewater presentation. But primarily, those folks are the ones that are going to be holding the businesses accountable for what we receive for our wastewater treatment, as well as for line inspections. For budgeted promotions, we have a account clerk that we're going to change the title to accounts payable technician. Be no increase. And then we are going to be promoting a clerk 2 to a records supervisor, and that has an annual increase of about $2,400, $2,500 a year. That is a necessary position. That person's been working that position, I believe, for well over a year. Chief McLaughlin can talk about that later. And it does, there is a benefit for having a supervisor over our records division. These are our positions, funded by, which would fund, general fund is 111 positions, gas tax 7.8, transit 11, wastewater 10.7. So you can just see the breakdown of our employees and how they're paid for. Measure V. So we're anticipating 4.3 million. We're budgeting 2 million in reserves, 6.4 million. The breakdown is 2.6 million for the PD, 362,000 for public works, 2.6 million for streets, and then 735,000 for capital projects, which would be roads. Carryover from last year was 2.8 million. The anticipated revenue for FY20 is 4.3 million. Expenditure is 3.8, carryover of 506,000.
Can you talk about the carryover that was so significant last time and what makes this carryover less? Is there something that was done to improve that?
Yeah,
or-
there was a road project that wasn't completed.
I knew that's what you were
Bart
going to say.
can, Mr. Lauer can explain that during his presentation
Okay.
about why
All
that
right.
occurred. Positions funded by Measure V, 18 in the police department, 0.4 in public works, 5.69 in streets. I do believe that's down 1 from the previous year. In past times, it was 19 at the police department. Now we're down to 18. That is still a significant number of the police department that is on Measure V, which is the reason why Measure V was passed, was to help support the PD. Earthquake reimbursement. We have outstanding requests of reimbursement of about $98,000. Oh, came back. And we have pending projects. Some of these projects have been completed. The top wastewater treatment repair, $59,000. That's been completed. The paperwork will be submitted. The beam repair, I believe we are in the process of getting that fixed now. Crack fill is out to bid. HVAC has been completed just recently, and we just have the individual invoice that will be sent off to Cal OES. Sewer inspection, I believe, has been completed, and we're awaiting the report. Sidewalk repair, we held off on that until the restroom at Freedom Park is installed, because if we fix it now and they run the crane across it to put the bathroom in, we're almost ensured that the new concrete will be cracked, so we held off on that. So once those are all completed, those will be in for reimbursement, and we're looking at getting at least 75% back on all those. So we're still waiting. I believe the total on that is about $1.8 million, and a good portion of that will be either wastewater or Measure V.
Down this way, you said that.
I should just look at my slides.
That's okay.
So,
I can
but
just
I'm
look
trying to
down.
face you guys, so I'm not talking sideways. So
Okay.
you're okay there, Madam Mayor. So we still have a lot of outstanding funding. When that funding is returned, it will go back. The funding that was used by Measure V will go back to Measure V. Funding for the wastewater enterprise will go back to that, and that is general fund will go into the unallocated. We don't know exactly when that's going to come back. Obviously, with the COVID-19 disaster, there's a lot of money that's going out through FEMA and the state. So I know that Sheree has a contact that she's been working with that's now engaged, because there for a while most of those folks were working from home and not answering their phones, so they're now back, and so we're addressing these things. Okay, COVID-19. When we got the first results or first information back from HDL on what our estimated losses in Bradley Burn, sales tax, and Measure V, the numbers were quite significant. When Sheree reached out to them, they were using that as a general formula, thinking that most communities were going to be in significant unemployment, 20%. A lot of these communities had a lot of boutiques, a lot of specialty shops. Our sales tax is a little bit different. Most people shop for their general supplies here. They make most of their special purchases either online or out of town. Sheree had her staff call our top 10 producers to get information on how are you doing, what do you think where are you at, are you up, are you down? Some of our major sales tax producers obviously is Walmart, Home Depot, and R2 auto sales. So based upon that information we got back with HDL, and we're able to provide them some of the information that we'd received from our stores that were currently open. And so our estimates came back just a little bit better than they had. At first, if you look up there at the top, we were tracking to be about $188,000 more in sales tax, $151,000 more in Measure V, just about $190,000, or actually it would have been, and TOT was $191,000. So we were looking at our estimations about being $500,000 better in our revenue projections. That we thought going into at the end of the year without COVID, we'd be at least $500,000 up in revenue. Well, looking at what we believe are numbers that are going to be for COVID-19, we're looking at about a $315,000 loss, which is about an $846,000 delta. So from going from being $500,000 in the positive, we're now $300,000 in the negative. Well, some of the open positions that we've had in the holdback on projects, we were able to gap that. we do believe that's where we're going to be at. Now, we also have another number up there that wasn't, that's not listed up there, our highway user tax for this year. For FY21, it's going to be $105,000 less than what they'd anticipated, so we had to adjust our budget to reflect that. We did have some losses in revenue in Parks and Recreation, but it was offset by not having to hire the employees to run the program, so we were a little low in our revenue for Parks and Rec, but we also didn't have to hire as many positions, so that was kind of an offset. So really COVID-19, at this point in time, we believe it's going to hit our budget to the tune of about $846,000.
But that, so the 846 though, that's the difference between, we were expecting it to be higher than what we originally budgeted.
Right, we're actually $315,000 less than what we
Budget.
had anticipated in our budget, but however,
Okay.
our budget was conservative, so I still, when you start looking at what we would have been if we hadn't hit it, we would be $846,000 to the good.
Yeah.
But
It's good
luckily,
to
we
be
were conservative in our
conservative.
budget, we're going to be about 315 in the hole.
Okay.
But this looked a whole lot worse when we got our initial numbers from HDL. I mean, we knew what our TOT was because we knew by driving by the hotels and talking to the RACBB and some of the managers that we knew that the hotels were empty. And we had a pretty good history of what that was. So we were pretty confident of what our TOT would have been at the end of the year. Now the big X factor was Measure V. Now there are still some risks to that. And so we have built some things in our budget that in case our projections of this year are not correct, or if the base is delayed in reopening, then we do have a little bit of a fallback. And we'll be discussing that in a second. So this is where we're looking at. So the COVID-19 budget, we're estimating about a $92,000 loss going into FY21. And mind you, this is of the assumption that the base will be reopened July 1st. Or at least substantially open, especially with the TOT.
So I have heard that the ban is likely to be extended. So what does that do for us, for the base?
I'm not sure. I have a conversation with them tomorrow at 10:30. I know that, really, if the base does not reopen, we're probably looking at the biggest issue would be our TOT. I think with a lot of folks being on that 75-mile restriction, we have a lot of people that are staying in town, shopping in town.
Yeah.
So I'm not too concerned about the sales tax, but I also know that we are here shortly going to have a significant number of people in town with these labor camps because the rebuild of the base is not on hold. In fact, it's ahead of schedule. So we know that is coming. But we did still take a very conservative approach to our budget, even though we know that that's coming. We did not want to estimate what that may bring to us. So where our biggest vulnerability, if it doesn't open, would be a little bit less TOT. But even if it's delayed by a couple months, the number of people that are expected to be here, that may negate that shortfall initially. What we did was, we do have, if you noticed on the slide, we do have some capital purchases that are holdback. Now, there's one on there that didn't make it on there, another $40,000 for our personnel rule update that we're going to hold back. So we have about close to $450,000 in holdback capital purchases that we will not do until we see things opening up. So we do have, some purchases that immediately that won't happen if it doesn't open up, and then if it gets worse, we can obviously then go deeper into the budget and hold back on a few other issues or a few other purchases. So, that we can deal with, within the first 3 months of the budget if we have to.
Is there a priority list of the the things we're holding back, like crack fill machine. Is our fill machine, do we still have one that's operational?
That is a second crack fill machine, and that's
Okay.
just to be able, in the road planer, those are just for us to be able to be more efficient at slurrying.
Okay, so we don't have anything that's gonna keep us from making progress on,
No.
and police vehicles, where we have adequate vehicles for our
Well,
police
the cars will keep going, but we have to start replacing them. We've been
refurbishing.
repurposing and refurbishing these things, and they're coming to their absolute end of life. And so these are purchases. We have Parks and Rec. They're looking at purchasing 2 used pickup trucks. We had one that was totaled in an accident, and another one that needs to be replaced because it's extremely old. And we're gonna, Jason will be purchasing used pickup trucks locally. So, yeah, these are important purchases. However, if things don't open up, we've built something in place, and there's other things we can do. We have positions as they come open. We can hold them open for a while and do salary savings there. So we do have a plan that if things don't open, we have a way of keeping within our budget, because what we'd like to do is not burn any of our unallocated reserves without the absolute necessity.
And when we do that, is there a overall plan that you have given priority to those in what you decide not to do?
Well, this is our initial plan, is not to make these purchases.
So, all of them?
Those, yes, yeah. We will not, those purchases will not be made until we actually start seeing stuff, there's some movement, we can take a look at what's going on. Now, things may change. We do have, staff will be coming to you with a first reading of an ordinance regarding the permissible labor camps within our community. My feeling on that is that if it's going to be city land, we have made, what we believe is a cost to that, and that would be general fund money coming in if we have somebody that leases our land. So that would be a one-time revenue source that would come into town. If they don't, then we're still looking at, positives with having, an extra 500 to 1,500 people in town, eating in our restaurants and doing their miscellaneous shopping. So, but like I said, this is something that we'll be reporting to the Finance Committee. I mean, this is just our budget today, and I think we got a solid budget that is that's balanced. We have fallbacks if we need it that are already built in at this point in time, and then we can then report monthly to the Finance Committee. If we need to make additional adjustments, we can.
Well, and hopefully with Marshall's opening up and there being a line all day out the door, people are going and spending.
We did take a very conservative approach to the budget. We could have, raised TOT, by 300,000 without probably even worrying. But until we're open, that's general fund. That's 3 police officer positions. That's no place I want to be at this point in time. So I think.
I had a quick question.
Sure.
So on the loss of revenues from the Measure V, how far out was that forecasted for that loss to continue on? Through
Just 1 year. Yeah, through FY21, yeah, that was the whole year.
now?
Yeah.
So, but, okay, and workers come is going to be approximately when do you think?
We're going to start seeing people here in August and September of this year.
Yeah, so then we
and
should-
the big numbers won't be here probably until the first of the year.
And we'll see an increase in the
Right. But we're
gas
not
usages at that point and kind of start to help.
right. We're not budgeting for that, and we have not seen what our county pool numbers are yet. There are still some concerns because the governor did allow business to take a $50,000 tax-free loan We're not going to know till probably the first quarter reporting how many businesses may have taken advantage of that. We anticipate not a lot, or if they did, it's not a significant amount because, you know, we normally get most of our sales tax from a few businesses. So it's not like it's spread out amongst a bunch. So, but we'll know more here in the next couple of months. But we elected to take a conservative approach to this, even though we know that the base is, you know, is going to be having to rebuild. But we didn't account for that in this budget.
What about the gas tax and,
Like I said earlier, the gas tax was about $105,000 less. We just got notified of that, I believe, 2 weeks ago, so we had to make the adjustments for that. That was one of the reasons why we delayed our, well, that and COVID-19, reason why we delayed our workshop at that time, because we were waiting to try and get as good a numbers as we possibly could before we came to council with the budget. So we did have to make some adjustments on that. And as long as nobody's traveling and the gas prices are low, yeah, we're going to see a little less money in that area.
But it offsets on the amount of money we spend for that too.
Right.
So do you think it's proportional, or are we using so much more?
We're
or
using a
less?
lot less. I remember when they changed the way they tax gas, they went by the gallon, not by the dollar amount. So normally fluctuations in costs will not affect us anymore. However, what does affect us is the number of miles people are driving and the use of gas, and with, you know, with a lot of people staying home and a lot of people not traveling as much, that does have an impact.
and then did we continue that forecast out further too into this?
Well,
budget?
it's FY21. I mean, I don't
Okay.
know, you know, I would assume that once we go back to normal, then, you know, we're going to go back to what our traditional numbers were. And in fact, you know, we do suspect that a lot of the people that are going to be coming here working are going to be staying here during the week and going home on the weekends. So we are going to see probably an uptick in gas sales on that, but we haven't really factored that in just yet because it's, you know, counting your chickens before they hatch.
Did we take advantage of the low gas prices ourselves for our yard and fill our tanks and,
I'll leave the question to Mr. Lauer. I don't know.
okay.
You only have so much storage down there, so
Yeah.
you can't take a lot of benefit on that.
Okay, that is the closing of the opening. And before we start the economic development, we can maybe open it up to any additional council questions or to the public.
Public, if you want to ask your questions, now would be a good time to call on those items that we just covered. Is there any council questions?
Now, mind you, if anybody has a question, we can always, you know, if they ask a question about economic development during the PD thing, I can answer it, so we can.
Okay.
So all of our insurance funds, risk, like all of those funds, we're able to keep fully funded at the levels, and we've been trying to build back up our reserves, so we're still able to maintain those levels. And
Yeah, I mean, our ultimate goal is to reach the recommended self-insurance fund amount as well as a 50% unallocated balance.
okay.
Is what California recommends, or the Department of Finance recommends as a healthy city. And that was one of our concerns initially when we started looking at the numbers was, you know, we've been working really hard, you know, trying to build up our reserves and to, you know, get us to the point to where we can give our employees a raise. I mean, it's hard to give the employees a raise if you don't have the money in the bank to cover for, you know, any sort of significant you know, events. Now, for us, we've had 2 so far this year. We've had COVID-19, we've had the earthquake. You know, what we haven't seen yet is a recession or something like what we had in the past where the RDA went away or you had a significant takeaway, you know, by the state on a certain general fund. So we want to get to a point as staff to where those funds are where they need to be. And so let's say if we're at a 50% unallocated amount, which is what the state considers a healthy city, well, if we get to 60%, well, we have a little bit of a buffer in there to maybe to do a capital project, a one-time expenditure, and that's safety, whether that's a road project or whatever out there that we need to do. But we still need to be able to have that, so then if we have an issue, we have a fallback. If we have to use 10-15% of our reserves, then we're at least not down to $88,000 like we were 13 years ago, which was horrible.
When we look at the discussion of the state budget and Governor Newsom's talk about and how they did it in the past, as the state will say IOU, are we anticipating any of that kind of actions on the state budget this year?
I don't know if they would do that, because at this point in time, most cities are in trouble. And to do that would just push one problem push their problem and make everything else significantly worse. What they did in the past was, they did a temporary 1 cent sales tax for a while to get the budget squared away, and that seemed to work. It came in and then it went out. That may be what they might look at doing. I'm not sure. I know that there's a recommendation to take the money from the high-speed rail project to put towards the schools, because the schools are looking at a 10% cut, and also a significant amount of work that they're going to have to do if they even bring the kids back, with all of the procedures they're going to have to do. So many kids in the classrooms. It's just going to be a disaster. So I'm hoping that, at least for our community, that they come up with a way of fixing the schools so we don't see that sort of impact within our community. But this is all hinging upon when everybody opens back up again, the economy gets running strong. Now, we're a little bit unique because we really haven't had a whole lot of people lose their jobs here. But I would also caution that the longer the base stays closed, the more of a chance they have of not filling positions as a way of meeting their budget down the road. Even though they're looking at a significant rebuild that's going to put us in a position to be, the #1 research and development base in the country, the most modern one. But we can't stay closed. I mean, that base makes its money, its budget based upon testing. FMS, Foreign Military Services, all the other branches of service coming in and testing. That needs to continue, for a couple of reasons. One, it's our economy driver. Two, it's a matter of national security. So we'll see. Time will tell everything.
Thank you. Okay, is there any other council comments? I see no public comments, so go on, please.
Okay, just a brief overview of our economic development. Some of our ongoing economic development activities. We have formed a group with IWVDC, China Lake Alliance, Ridgecrest Area Realtors, Chamber of Commerce in the city, as well as a local group of Restaurant Association to assist the contractors that are preparing their bids for the $3 billion rebuild of the base that we anticipate will happen over the next 3 to 5 years. That obviously goes back to what I stated previously about us, at least providing the opportunity of a labor camp within our community. Whether or not the council will allow one within our community, we still will have that ability to do so now and in the future in matters of national security disaster. So it opens up, let's say, for instance, we had the earthquake would have damaged 300 or 400 homes, and we had to bring trailers in. This will allow us the ability to put those trailers on a piece of land in town for temporary rebuild. So we're positioning ourselves for problems in the future. So we'll see how this goes. We have at least 4 contractors that are interested in either land within the city or at the fairgrounds. There is a significant interest in the land that the Navy's offering. There are some advantages to that. That land is free. More likely there'll be no impact charge for roads or public safety. The big issue that I think they're going to have is sewer. They're going to be far enough out. It'd be nearly difficult to hook up to our system because of the easements involved and the cost. So we'll see. We'll see how they do their bids and whether or not we have anybody interested with the city. If they do, then obviously we'll come back to council in closed session and discuss it as a land lease or a license. So Melissa Anchetta, our economic development analyst, has taken lead on that. I do participate and assist. So that's been a positive thing that has added a lot of that significant relationship between those groups. I think has improved considerably even before this, but I think this has brought that group a whole lot closer together, which I think is an extreme benefit for the city. We haven't had that in the past that I've known, to have that sort of group all on the same page, and it's been refreshing. We have the 2 hotels. Holiday Inn Express is broken ground. Town Place Suite is their grading permits done. They should be breaking ground here very shortly. Panda Express, they came in for a variance, and it turned out they didn't need one. So they're looking at breaking ground in the fall and opening in February. So they're clear to go. It's just a matter of when they want to move forward. So the Oasis at China Lake is in plan check. It's a new movie theater, bless you. And the bowling alley, they have Starbucks and Chipotle signed on to build at the same time. Hopefully early next year they'll break ground. We have the casino with the amended MSA with the possible groundbreaking in 2021.
Where's the rest of the Walmart development at?
We do not know where Panera's at. We know that-
Or just where the other parcels in front of Walmart are they coming back, or are they going to just do it individually like Panda?
we should be able to do lot line adjustments on it, and they'll eventually come back with the tentative track map for approval. But we did find a way of being able to allow them to build. Like I said, where Panera's at, I know we've reached out. We probably need to get with HDL, but with everything going on, we just haven't.
Yeah.
And of course, everything's shut down. Nobody's really,
Yeah. The Holiday Inn Express too, when is that predicted to be open by?
I'd say probably within 6 to 8 months.
Okay.
I think is a good estimation. Now everybody keeps saying that they believe that Town Place Suite's going to beat Holiday Inn Express because Town Place builds it off-site and brings it in and builds it from, and then connects it together like Lego blocks. So we'll see. I mean, it's not that it's cheap. They just, to save money, they just construct it in a warehouse and then ship it out. So I guess they found a way of keeping their costs down.
I guess Holiday Inn hit a gas line this last week.
Yes. I do have, sorry.
Obviously, hey Ron, where are we at on the casino?
The casino's moving along. I know that they are going to be asking for an extension on land purchase, primarily because Department of Interior has been closed down during COVID-19. Their intergovernmental agreement has been approved with the county. They have, I believe, they've hired an architecture firm to design the casino. I believe they have found a company to secure the loan. And I know that they were working on a draft compact with the state prior to COVID-19, and I believe that as everybody starts coming back to work, they'll start meeting again.
Thank you.
I do have Melissa working with the Chamber of Commerce. They're looking at replacing that sign down at near Bowman. So I do believe that they just received here this last week some quotes for the cost of that, and so they're discussing how they may move forward on that. So we'll see where that's at. I think that may be something that, if everything is right, that maybe the city might be able to loan the chamber some money with, them paying us back with advertisement to get that sign back going again. That's been something that everybody keeps talking about. How do we keep our community, informed? And, everybody talks about, the papers, the radio. pretty much everybody eventually goes down by Walmart to do their shopping. So that may be, the infrastructure's already there. They believe that they might be able to use the current sign structure, so they wouldn't have to replace it. So they're still working on that. I don't know if they're going to come ask us for that, but we'll see. But I think, you know, we've encouraged that sign to chamber to either, you know, replace it, or we're going to have to remove it because it's just a blight down there. And then the Caltrans business logo sign. Melissa's been reaching out to businesses to see if we can get interested parties to, you know, as you drive down the highway, you can see, you know, on the sign where it'll say you got, you know, Walmart or, you know, Arco gas station or McDonald's. Well, when you're driving north on 395, there really is, other than the sign that the RECBB puts up, there really is nothing saying that we even have a hospital in town. I do believe that Caltrans, their policy is that we do not qualify because we're a remote rural highway and we're not a freeway, but we have to be able to get people to apply before we can appeal for an exception. We feel that there's two primary reasons why we want that there. One, it's a safety issue. You know, you really don't know that Ridgecrest is, you know, off the side of the road there based upon if you're driving north. So you don't know we have food, you don't know we have pharmacies, you don't know that we have a hospital and hotels. You just don't see that. So I think that's one for safety, because we're in the middle of nowhere, and, you know, the next logical place for people to go would be Lone Pine or Bishop if they're going north. And the next thing is obviously economic development. If we can get people off the highway, then we get more sales tax dollars without having to provide services. So we're working on that. We'll see. That may be something that we have to, you know, get people interested, get an appeal. That may be one of the ones we have to get our state elected officials involved to make an exception, because I think that it would be nice to have it. The last is a land annexation. I have budgeted $60,000, and that would be a land annexation up towards 395 in China Lake. So we'll see how that goes over the next year, but we're still working on that as a land swap with BLM.
I have a question about that. Just seeing the list of projects from before that we're not doing, do we feel that the $60K for the land annex is more important than those other items?
Yeah, I think that land annexation is our future. It may not be something that gets developed 5 or 10 years from now, but I think that 10 to 20 years from now, that will be our economic lifeblood. I think 395 will eventually be a 4-lane highway. If you look at how most cities are designed, most of them would build up on the highway because that's how you drag people off, you get your revenue. Look at Tehachapi. You know, they have 2 huge fuel stations, and that's a significant amount of revenue for them. You know, you get people off the highway that you're not providing services for that come, you know, food, Home Depot, Walmart. You know, a significant of their economy is people they drag off 58. And I would say that regarding most of the communities off 99 and any other highway. But when we're 4 miles off the highway, it's hard to drag people off.
Well, those 2 gas stations, too, weren't there a few years ago, and now they're both swamped, so they're putting a lot of volume in.
So if you ask me about that annexation, yeah, we may not see it today, but that is our future. We should have been up there 20, 30 years ago. In fact, my opinion is we should have been at up in Inyakern at 14 and 395 is where we should have built if you wanted to do a planned community, in my opinion. But we were the secret city, and I guess people didn't want, when they got kicked off the base, didn't want to go so far. You know, I guess people didn't want, when they got kicked off the base, didn't want to go so far. You know, so they did the best thing and built their homes closest to their work. So
That is something I've been working on since the first day I was elected, and there's been significant progress, and the fact that we have the opportunity and businesses asking, what can we do? How can we be there? Because even if it doesn't go, even if the freeway doesn't go bigger, because it's said yes, it was going to be 8 lanes, and then it isn't, and then it is. And so whatever it is, it's a place to stop before they go anywhere else. And I want to see the dollars come to our community rather than somewhere else.
No, I think the land annexation up there is a good idea. I just didn't know with all the things that we're delaying for right now, if that's,
Well, I'll be honest with you, that's probably, that would be funding if we, as we start working our way into this potential annexation, there are stuff that we're gonna have to hire somebody that specializes in land annexation so we can prep and, because if we annex it, we have to do the zoning update and everything.
Right.
So that, we're talking probably 6 months before we'd even, probably after the first of the year would be the soonest we'd probably be looking at that, because right now the federal government's just shut down with COVID-19. So I would assume that by the time they open up, there's a backlog in everything in the world. So it's going to take a while for this to kind of get back on the front burner again. So I would anticipate this money probably would not be needed till at least the soonest, maybe March of 21.
okay.
Yeah, in my view, and I would also argue that this would be something that if I had to ask the council for unallocated funds because of the importance of it, I think it'd be a worthy project to move forward.
LAFCO's been very supportive, and McCarthy's office has been the same.
Yeah, I'd say it's probably one of the most important things from an economic driver standpoint that we, could be doing for the city. So if we had to cut back, I'd say cut back and, where we can and not cut back on that particular.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's something that has to come to council when it gets a little bit closer, but it has been something where we've been laying the groundwork down for meeting with LAFCO, what's the process, and so I think we've got the process down fairly well on how it has to happen. We do have some excess land in Inyo County that's within a protected area that we're looking at maybe trading for a certain amount of land up at that location. So it's all preliminary. So once it gets closer, then yes, we'll come back and brief council a little bit further. But I need to budget the money now, so if it progresses, we have it there. Multifamily development, Red Rock Apartments, they're ready to go. I talked to Ted. They're still looking at meeting with the hospital. He says he wants to get going, so as soon as we get an answer, I guess they'll go. Mojave View Affordable Housing, we should hear about the grant award in July. We did score fairly high, so there should be an announcement 1st of July. These are all the things that we as a city and primarily Melissa is engaged in. There's actually one more that we didn't include on there. There is an economic group in Bakersfield now that's been formed, and I've assigned her to be on the board. I think they have their first meeting, I think, early next week. So there's another one she's going to be engaged in. On my way again. There you go. So these groups are important. I would say, especially the top group, I think is probably the best for our community is that group. But everything else there, current EDC, the RACVB, Gavia, these are all organizations that I think, at the end of the day, Ms. Stevens, we've been working very hard to try and bring in fast casual, and some of the things we've been running up against is how do we get franchise businesses within our community. When Wingstop came in, it was kind of like, well, where did Wingstop come from? Well, Wingstop has a franchise or several franchises down in Lancaster, Palmdale, and that owner saw an opportunity to come up here. One of these things I think by being engaged in these groups is that I think that we may eventually build those connections in Bakersfield, so we can then attract franchisees. I know there's a fast casual that there's a franchisee in Bakersfield that wants to come here. However, it's Palmdale, Lancaster area, and so Melissa's going to be reaching out to the corporate office to say, hey, we got somebody in Bakersfield that wants it. How do we make this thing happen? So I think that there's some promise there with that, and maybe bringing a few additional conveniences into town through that. So one thing to note, our Buxton contract ends December of this year. We'll be coming back to council outside the budget for recommendations whether or not we want to continue that. So that'll be something we'll be coming back at the end of the year, end of the calendar year, not fiscal year.
Because we don't have the deliverables yet, we can't.
Right. I have no problem in staying with them. I just want to see, a little more information out of them.
Yeah.
I think they have promise, but I think we need to get a little bit more, and I think that needs to be briefed at the Economic Development Committee.
Yeah. And it hurt that we didn't have our ICSC show this
Right.
year.
I mean, the good part is we do have some stuff that is coming in that's going to be very beneficial to our community. So we'll just see how it goes. I mean, this is a marathon, not a sprint, when it comes to bringing these businesses in. Okay, we're looking at applying for a LEAP grant, and with that, we're looking at funding the update of our housing element, as well as updating our engineering standards. Why is an engineering standard? I mean, the housing element has to by law. We have to update that. The engineering standards are important. I believe that by updating it, that it will speed up our process for building. We need to address our parking standards, our street standards. That there's just some things on there that we just need to take a look at, modernize, and then get the input from the community, and then set it in place. Those have not been updated since, I believe, the 80s? Okay, since the 80s. They're quite old, and they're archaic. We are looking at updating some elements of our general plan this year, as well as updating ordinances in our municipal code. Since we've gotten the municipal code updated, we are going to start bringing that to you, hopefully on a regular basis, and updating some of the things that have been problematic. We are looking to adopt the Kern County building fee format for single mechanical, electrical, and plumbing inspections. We're not addressing new homes or remodels yet. That will come back to council here in the next couple months. But the single mechanical fees, right now we have two fees. We have the administrative fee, then we have just a flat mechanical, electrical, plumbing fee. So it's all the same. Some of these are going to go down. Some of the plumbing, popular plumbing, will go down by $7-8. Mechanical will go up, I think, $14, and I believe plumbing will go down. But what this does is it allows us to have a menu to choose from. So if somebody comes in and wants to do a certain plumbing, right now it's $36.60 plus $85. Well, some of these will be as low as $29 or $12. This will be more appropriate. But there are some that are more expensive that need to be charged what the appropriate amount is. And really the whole idea is that once we can get this in our system and update it, because we haven't done that yet. So this is the first part. Then the next one is a Office of Economic Adjustment grant. This will be coming to you guys here shortly. We do believe that this grant's can be awarded. We'll bring it back to council. Corinza, my analyst in the building department, has been working on this for the last, I believe, 6 weeks with a consultant from the OEA. The benefit for this is it'll provide us a report on energy and water resiliency, which I think is what the base has told us is important for us to be able to get funding for, let's say, an interconnect for imported water or anything that we'd have for energy security for both the base and the city. This will be a in-kind grant administered by the city. We have to have a 10% in-kind match. We built that into the budget. Corinza will be our point of contact with that. So she'll be working with the stakeholders of the water district, the county, the Navy, and a few other stakeholders that are identified in the grant. So it is going to take some time, city staff time, to do this, but I think at the end of the day, there is going to be a benefit to both the city and the Navy for that. So that will come back to you guys when the time's right. But that is one of the things we're working on. And that's it for economic development. If there's any questions, I can answer those, and then we can move forward with Cherie's presentation.
Let me ask the public if you would like to address anything, please call in now at this time. And council, is any questions? I'm assuming no one is calling in. Gary? Okay, well then let's go on.
Okay, so the finance department is responsible for finance services like accounts payable, accounts receivable, payroll, financial reporting, and business licensing. They're also responsible for the treasury, which is the revenue collection, cashiering, and banking and investment, and budget development, implementation, and monitoring. In fiscal year 2020, our accomplishments were that we do anticipate receiving the GFOA award for excellence in financial reporting. We've been receiving this award since 2004. We have not received official word that we have received it for last year, but we do anticipate receiving it. We also facilitated the annual independent audit process, resulting in an unmodified audit opinion with no material exceptions. We served both internal and external stakeholders with business license renewals, business licenses, invoices, vendor checks, timesheets and payroll checks, punch bus passes, and monthly bus passes. During fiscal year 20, we did change banks. We're anticipating a savings of $16,000 because of that change. We also changed credit card processing companies, and this now allows us to charge service fees, whereas before the city was paying those service fees. We did install ADA compliant credit card machines at the finance, police, building, and animal control counters. I don't know if any of you have seen them, but they can actually be pulled down. We also began setting up EFT payments with larger vendors to allow for quicker payment. This is also something that we're going to continue working on in fiscal year 21. We worked with the IT department and Tyler Technologies in the development and implementation of online payments for renewing business licenses. All business licenses can now be renewed and paid for online. And then we also contracted HDL to conduct a business license audit to make sure that all businesses have an active business license. The goals for the finance department for fiscal year 21 are to continue to facilitate the implementation of new accounting and auditing standards, provide superior customer service to both city staff and the general public, prepare timely and informative financial reports. We do want to develop citywide payroll policies and transition from paper timesheets to e-timesheets. And we are also requesting to rename the account clerk 2 position to a more appropriate title of accounts payable technician.
Can I ask a couple questions?
Sure.
At one point, we were talking about doing the online renewal for business licenses. Are we still working towards that?
That is set up completely.
It's completely set up. Okay,
renew
great.
online now.
And then, I know in previous years, we had concerns about like the armored truck costs and like the frequency of pickup. Have we figured out anything, how to reduce that? Because we're doing more electronically, are we able to reduce that?
We actually do not have armored services anymore
Okay,
because of the bank change, so.
good. And then with the e-timesheet, will that allow more of like a time clock thing where like when they log into their workstation, it's
It's going to be more computer-based, yes, but there's not going to be like a time clock that they punch in or anything. It'll just be they keep track on the computer by themselves. And the police department has actually implemented a timekeeping system on their own. So they've done their portion of it, and then we'll need to continue to do the rest for the rest of City Hall.
So is their timekeeping portion more like a time clock, and is that, no, okay,
It's an app, I believe, but
okay.
No, we're just getting past the paper process where we have to shuffle paper around. Now it's just going to be electronically, so we don't have to have people come into work to do their timesheets. It'd just be much easier and quicker.
Okay.
the fiscal year 2021 budget, the proposed personnel is $440,000, services of $147,000, and materials $14,000, for a total of $601,000. And included in that are our professional services. HDL does our property and sales tax reports. Revenue and cost specialists do our cost allocation plan. And then we have various reports done for GASB reporting. CalPERS does our GASB 68, and NIHART does our GASB 75. And then we also have various reports that are due to the State Controller's Office that are handled by Sales Consulting and BLX Group.
And one more question. So the personnel, looking at from 2018, 2019, the personnel was 335, and then the year in projection for this year is 368, and we're jumping up to 440. Is that retirement? Are people getting merit increases? What's the breakdown of that?
People are getting merit increases, but the big jump in personnel is going to be because of the PERS COP payment. That has increased from last year, and it will increase again next year before it starts to go down. But something else to look at, though, is our actual for 19 was 335, and then our projection is 368, even though our amended budget was 395, and that's due to some turnover in the department.
Okay. Then what portion, kind of, just to get an idea, is the PERS retirement versus is the bulk of it like 70% the retirement, or?
Off the top of my head, I would say it's probably closer to about 60%, but yeah.
Thank you.
And that's all I have.
Okay, is there any questions from council on this? Public, if you would like to address the items from the finance department, please call in right now. Do we still have that many online? Okay. All right, I'm assuming since no one's called in, Gary, you're saying nobody? Okay, well then let's go to the next item, please.
Madam Mayor, next group will be Parks and Recreation. Mr. Patton, are you okay with, want to sit here, or you want to go to the, let's see.
Madam Mayor, Council, good evening.
Good evening.
Here we are again. All right, so we're going to start off with what we got accomplished this year in the department. As you can see from the list, we've been pretty busy. We'll go through it fairly quickly. For the Kerr-McGee Center and City Hall, we replaced 19 HVAC units. They were all 30 years old and highly inefficient. So thanks to you guys, you budgeted the project and we got it done. One of the units we were able to attribute to the earthquakes, it was off kilter. So as the city manager said, we submitted that to Cal OES. A lot of tree replacements. There was a lot of dead trees around City Hall, and there'll be some pictures after this. You can see the before and after. We replaced pretty much every dead tree around City Hall, make it look a little nicer instead of having a bunch of stumps and dead trees around. We repaired and painted all the damaged pillars around City Hall and the Kerr-McGee Center. Some of them were due to earthquake damage, and some were just overtime. So we took care of all that, the maintenance crew. Repaired and painted City Hall Circle and removed glass and placed rock. I'm sure you've all seen that. It looks 100% better. We restuccoed and not only repainted, but we restuccoed too. And the rock looks great. We purchased pipes and drapes for events, rental events in the Kerr-McGee Center. So when we have weddings and quinceañeras and things like that, retirement parties, it looks really, really nice. We purchased a lift along with the Public Works Department so that we, don't spend $4,000 or $5,000 every time we have to rent a lift. So now we have our own, and all departments can use it. So that helped out. We purchased outdoor volleyball nets and equipment. The idea is to redo former volleyball pits that were there. We bought the equipment. We're just, with everything, we haven't gotten to it yet, but we hope to get to that before fall so it can start being used when the weather calms down a little bit, or cools off a little bit, I should say. Energy efficient projects at City Hall and Senior Center. We every single light, incandescent light was replaced with LED lights. Took a little while, and actually everybody in the city pretty much participated. It wasn't just us. We purchased them and installed most of them, but the PD did some, and I think Ron even did some. So everybody was into it. The Freedom Park restroom, that was scheduled to be done at the beginning of this month, but because of the COVID stuff going on, everything pretty much got pushed back that has to do with construction. And we're scheduled to be done with that by the end of the month. So that'll be good. We replaced a water tank at Leroy Jackson Park Sports Complex because it was just totally rusted out. And again, you'll see a couple pictures here in a minute. We have an ongoing turf rehab at Pearson Park. If you look at it now compared to where it was about a year ago, it's completely different. We had a soil study done, and it was recommended for us to use certain chemicals to get it back up to speed. And it's going to take 1 year to 2 years to get it back, but it's coming back really well. Also, we'll replace some dead trees at Pearson Park and Upjohn Park as well. So you can see the guys have been busy. You can see the before and afters here, the trees around City Hall and Kerr-McGee Center, the water tank. As I was saying, you can see how it's rusted out at the top and it was rusting out at the bottom. It was just beyond repair. And we'll probably have to do the other one here in the next couple of years as well. The
So is that blue lift the lift you bought?
That's their lift.
Oh.
That's the company that brought the tanks lift. But it's similar. You'll see it. It's pretty much the same. And then the HVAC, you can see on the top the old ones. You got the new one on the bottom. That's a picture of the circle that we've redone, a sample of what's going in at Freedom Park in the restroom. The repaired pillars at City Hall and Kerr-McGee. New trees at Upjohn. You can see that we're working on the turf at Pearson Park. Trees at Pearson Park. And there's the new lift, which you can see it looks almost exactly like the other one. So, and it's been really handy. I got to tell you, we don't have to wait. We can get this stuff done right away.
How high up does it go?
80 feet, which enables us to do anything we need.
You ever gone up 80 feet?
Not me.
It's scary. I've gone up 37, and that was scary. So.
No, thanks. Events, those got cut short of because of COVID, of course, but we did some movie nights in Freedom Park. Average 200 plus people usually. We did trunk or treat, Halloween, which I think 2,000 is a low estimate of the amount of community kids that participate in that. Tree lighting, the youth advisory participated in that with us. About 100 people showed up for that on the same night as the tree lighting, of course. And we did a Not too long after the earthquake, when Red Cross was here, we did a movie night just with the police department, just for something for those people that were stuck here, had something to do, take their mind off things a little bit.
We only had about 1 million people here for
Yeah.
that. Oh, not quite,
It was pretty crazy,
yeah.
but at least we had the space for them, so that's good. These are just the admin costs, staffing summary. This is all in the general budget that you see nothing's changed. Same thing with the recreation department, nothing's changed, just the numbers go up a little bit because we have to account for the rise in minimum wage and, CPI, which we do. Staffing for recreation, very minimal. So the projected revenue for the recreation side is about $210,000. This is assuming things get back to normal, and we can reopen our programs, youth sports, preschool, summer camps, summer programs, concessions, and drop-in, which is like people come to play basketball and racquetball and things like that. So parks maintenance facilities, these are all the facilities that our department maintains. Park Shop, Leroy Jackson Park, Pearson Park, Upjohn Park, Youth Sports Complex, Kerr-McGee Youth Sports Complex, street medians, Kerr-McGee Center, City Hall, Freedom Park, and Splash Pad and Senior Center. So you see there's a lot for 7 people to take care of for a department that used to have 12 maintenance people. So they're doing an excellent job trying to keep up. So that's the Parks Department. You can see the payroll side, and you can see the number of employees. It says 9, 7 are out working everywhere. There's one Caesar that takes care of this complex and the Kerr-McGee Center. And then, of course, the supervisor, Nick, is in that as well. So there's really 7 people out there taking care of all those other facilities.
Jason, I have a question, if I may.
Yes, ma'am.
The budgeted was $578,000, and we're estimating $773,000. Are we going to be able to derive more benefit from that, or is that just the cost of doing business with the people?
That's really just the cost. I mean,
Okay.
there's, with the increase in PERS and increase in
what I was
minimum
gonna-
wage, and it's kind of is what it is. We don't,
Did we give any merit increases to any of them?
just the normal step, just the normal step increases, which we do every year, which is calculated into that as well. And Cherie is really the one that takes care of all that.
I'm amazed how much we get done with so few people.
We have a good crew. We're blessed, for sure. All right.
I had a couple questions.
Sure.
The drape rental, has that seemed like it's been utilized a lot? I mean, given that we've been shut down, it probably hasn't been, but.
No, not yet. We haven't used it once. We haven't used it once yet. It's pretty new, and it's in the new fee structures this year, which
Okay.
it wasn't in before.
Or, so it wasn't really advertised yet?
Right.
Okay.
So it's in there now, and when people book the rooms, we'll have that option to give them, say, hey, we have this now. But I think people will use it.
Did that hurt us too with the reservations of Kerr-McGee and not having events?
Yeah, I mean, we've had, since this all started, we've had 0 events.
Yeah.
Absolutely, we can't. And we haven't even used our facility for the summer programs that we normally would. So yeah, it's significant because this is the time of year where we generate most of our money
Right.
because of our youth programs.
Do we have any programs going at all right now?
Only day camp. That's the only one that's been allowed by the state and the
What does that
county.
consist of?
Basically daycare.
It's a basic day camp we have, and there's lots of restrictions, but it's kids come and they do games and they're there all day if they want to be. Lots of activities and games. It's not a preschool. It's for school age kids up to 12.
What age?
Up to 12 years old. School age up to 12.
So 6 to 12,
5 to
basically.
12, 6 to 12. Yeah. Kindergarten through 5th grade, I guess it would be. But yeah, that's the only program that we've been allowed to operate so far. And it's full because parents want to get rid of their kids now.
Yeah, they do.
What about, with the volleyball, are we gonna do, try to offer an adult volleyball, sand volleyball league
We absolutely can, sure.
Okay. And then have we seen, I know the HVAC system's pretty new, but have we seen a savings yet in the energy costs? Efficiencies, anything?
We want to get through the summer cycle
And then we'll,
and then take a look at it.
Okay.
But we're hoping and we're, estimating that between the lighting project and the AC project, we're going to see a significant decrease. And also in that mix, it's tough because during the earthquake, the solar field was down. So we want to get through a full summer
regular, yeah.
at normal usage so we compare it to the previous years.
Okay. And then we had a question yesterday about the water at the dog park, and I think after the craziness we didn't answer. She called in about the water not being on at the dog park, and with it being hot. Is there anything we can do about that?
The dog park is in the county park.
I went and looked at it today. I didn't see extraordinary with no water.
No, I think she means getting water to maybe water the dogs.
Oh, I thought she was talking
Oh,
about
okay.
watering. Okay.
I think
Yeah. Thank you.
So I'm putting in a call to the county to work on getting the water turned on at that dog park.
Yeah, and ultimately, we wouldn't do anything at that park because we don't
Yeah,
maintain
I just
it.
didn't want to slip through the cracks because she called right when the earthquake hit. And it just dawned on me since we were talking about parks. So,
yeah, we're all celebrities now. We're all on national TV.
yeah.
Yeah, I saw it on the news just before I came over. Normally, when we get calls like that for the county park, we forward it on to them.
But they weren't talking at all, so it was just a faucet that wasn't, is that?
I'm not.
'Cause I went
I'm
and
not sure.
looked, and I thought, I can't see anything that looks bad there.
I've
Yeah, I
never-
don't think it was the grass. I think
not
she
the
was talking
grass,
about,
it's
she's
the-
talking about to
Okay,
fill up like a
watering the
water
dog.
bowl for the
Okay.
dogs
Oh,
to
for the
drink
dog
out
to
of.
drink water. I haven't
Yeah.
been in that park because we don't, necessarily. I don't take my dog there, and we don't maintain it, so I've never been there. But
Yeah.
we'll forward it on. And
I went today, it looks fine.
all right. Projected revenue for parks facility rentals this year is going to be $115,000 again, assuming things go back to normal and we can rent out the facility and hold programs in there. That includes the Kerr-McGee Youth Sports Complex, Leroy Jackson Park, the Kerr-McGee Community Center, and the Senior Center, which all generates revenue for us. So hopefully, things will open up and we can get back to business as usual. Fee changes, I'm not going to go through all this. You guys can take a look. We've upped our fee rates to cover for employees and for the minimum wage, and also the CPI, to cover CPI, the Consumer Price Index, which is just an average of what consumers do and how things go up. And so we have to account for that too. So we went up what we needed to cover the minimum wage and the CPI. July 1. All this takes effect July 1. So what's next? What kind of projects are we going to do this coming year? Ongoing turf rehab at Pearson and Leroy Jackson parks. Freedom Park gazebo, we're going to restucco and get that painted looking nice again because people have events out there too, weddings and things like that. Rebuild the volleyball courts at Pearson Upjohn Parks. Purchase 2 used work trucks. If Mr. Strand talked about that earlier, if the budget permits, we're going to move forward with that. We're down 2 trucks, basically. Replace light around Civic Center with LED lights, and we're talking about doing basically the same thing we did here, but in the parking lot. So there's not a lot of parking lighting out there, so it makes a huge difference by putting these LEDs in it. Brighten it covers much more area than the current style, and they're very easy to retrofit, and it's not very expensive. So I think that's important for safety. So that's what we're going to do there. So potential projects for impact fees and Prop 68 grant. The Prop 68 grant is a grant that we've been chasing for about a year, that we applied for, a state grant that guarantees whoever applies for it gets $200,000. And the money I can't remember the total amount of the grant, but whatever grant monies that are left over, they'll split up with all of the different organizations that applied based on per capita. So we know we're going to get 200, and we're hoping to get more. So we'll wait and see. They keep pushing the date back, because it sounds like they're not getting a lot of. They need to stop so we can get more money. But so as soon as that happens, we want to couple that money with the impact fee money and get some projects done. And of course, we'll be bringing that to the quality of life. Some ideas we have right now are restrooms at Pearson Park, Leroy Jackson Park, and a couple new sports fields to enable us to try to rotate fields and rest fields for maintenance purposes.
Where are you going to put those? Do you have any idea?
The fields?
The new sports fields?
Hopefully one at each place. Hopefully one at Leroy Jackson Park
I
and
see
one
what
at
you're
Kerr-McGee.
saying. Okay, I got
Yeah.
it.
Mhm.
Okay.
And a couple quick questions.
Sure.
The gazebo, are we
Uh-huh.
gonna make sure that, like, is that gonna be completed before the parade of flags? Like, since that's just a big community event and normally it kind of features that gazebo.
I don't see why we can't get it done by then.
Okay.
Yeah, we can make that a priority. That's not a huge project, so I don't see a problem with that.
And then the LED lights, is that going to be just replacing the light bulbs in the existing? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
because we have the one out front that got hit by a car a while ago and still doesn't look quite right.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the LED lights too at the ball fields, are we thinking we might at some point change those lights out to LED? Can we do that, or does that require a whole new structure?
You can do that, and it's much more costly. But we've spoken with Musco Lighting, which is the company that did our project at the Kerr-McGee Sports Complex when we put the new lights in at the football soccer field, and it can be done. It's expensive, and there's other concerns out there with the lighting poles and such like that in their age, but it can be done. It's just costly.
Okay.
Is there a direct benefit in savings? Clearly, but does it offset, and how many years do you have any idea how many years it takes to offset that?
That's a
extra
kind of yes
cost?
and no question. It's a benefit for the user mostly because they pay for the
bill.
lighting.
Right.
For us, it's kind of a break-even thing. It'd be more of a public service that we do that to where our youth organizations can use our facilities at a lower cost.
Thank you.
And then the projects, the grant projects, if we get the grant funds, we can swap out any other projects. It wasn't a project-specific grant. It's just applying for the funds.
It's not a project-specific, but it's a location-specific. So we can use it at Kerr-McGee Sports Complex and Leroy Jackson, I believe, are the only two complexes we can use the grant money. But you can pretty much use it for any project you want, improvement project.
Okay. Thank you.
Jason, I'm curious, the solar project, how much of the electricity that's used between these two buildings is generated there?
Boy, we don't really track that. That's the IT department handles the solar facility. Ron might be able to answer that better than me.
Oh, hold on.
Oh, thank you. I do believe that we produce in that field more electricity than we use. However, our cost comes in for the demand. And that was one of the reasons why we wanted to change out all of the fluorescent and incandescent lights with LED, as well as a side effect of the HVACs, was to lower our demand because that's where the costs are coming in at. So no, last time we checked, we're actually using, less electricity than we're producing. The sad part is that I'd love to be able to connect it to the senior center, but we can't. We have to do a separate system. So one day I'd like to be able to put solar at the senior center because we do subsidize that quite a bit for the senior program, which is, which is acceptable, but it would, the more we can reduce costs over there, the better. And the better we keep that facility up for the seniors, I think that's just good for our community.
Now, the county runs the lunch program over there, is that correct?
Correct.
But that's been shut down, I assume?
No, it's still, they're still doing,
Still doing it?
they're still doing deliveries, yes.
Oh, they do deliveries, but
They're
not
doing
having
deliveries,
anything there.
Or you can pick up.
Yeah, you can pick up
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
deliver.
I mean, the biggest effect of the COVID-19 is I mean, I think, yeah, the nutrition is important, but I think the social aspect is probably the biggest issue. And it's sad that they, you know, that because of the COVID-19, our aged are at a very high risk. And so, you know, most of those folks are at home, so.
Are we, because restaurants are allowed to open, but with spacing, are they gonna be able to do that soon in the senior center too? And then the county does the program, but we pay the electric costs?
We
still?
maintain the building. The county does provide, I believe, up to a $12,000 a year stipend for any sort of significant repairs to the kitchen and a few other places.
Okay,
So we tend to spend that money. If something breaks, we tend to do that. But the major repairs, you know, I'd like to one day be able to get in there and fix the bathroom and make it more ADA compliant. I know that one of the CARES Act purchases that we're going to do will probably be touchless water faucets, touchless, you know, toilet flush. I do believe we're looking at putting in a automatic door. So with the CARES grant, we'll be doing improvements over there also, which will, you know, ultimately improve that facility. So,
And they also pay rent. They pay $800 in a month in rent.
that doesn't come close to what we invested
yeah,
in. But like
I was
said,
gonna say, like, does that amount, has it ever changed?
no, it's a long-term contract. You know,
Yes.
we took a look at it, and actually, we have one of the better contracts with the county
Okay,
for reimbursement. But I also look at it as you know, I remember being in a council meeting when we were looking at shutting the senior center down, and we had a large group of people here. We would never recommend shutting that
No.
facility down, but I think it is a priority for us, and I do believe that the city council has put a significant amount of money into that building to rehab, and I still think there's more we should do and could do. And I'd like to say, I think this next year with the CARES Act, we are going to be, whatever we can do to improve that area, make it more sanitary, we will.
well, the $12,000, can we stack that, or do you use it or do you lose it if you don't use it every year?
It's only for specific repairs. Basically, if something breaks in the kitchen, an oven, a microwave, or whatever they use in there, if the freezer breaks, then we fix it, and then they reimburse us.
Didn't we replace a lot of equipment when we did the upgrades?
No, not a lot of equipment. The only thing we replaced really in the last couple of years is the main refrigerator, because the compressor went out. We had to replace that. But other than that, no major equipment.
Okay,
That money just doesn't come to us. It's only there for reimbursement if certain things break.
okay.
Really, the only money that we get from the county is the rent. But other than that, I mean, I think we're more than happy to participate as a willing partner in that endeavor to make sure we take care of our seniors.
Yeah, and we did look into the rent and the cost and the utilities, us paying utilities and all that. And like Mr. Strand said, out of the research we did we contacted every city that has an agreement with them. We had by far the best agreement. So.
Okay. Thank you.
That's it.
That's it. Okay, public, does anybody want to address any items on the Park and Rec? Council, do you have any questions while we're waiting? Okay, yes. Let's do ahead and take a 5-minute break. All right. Yes.
That's what you get lunches at the senior center?
I don't, but Cecil does. And Don Williams does.
I was gonna ask if there's any COVID money for the senior center.
The last time I went there, the senior center was back in the bubble.
They
As
have,
a councilman.
they have.
Oh, he did.
now. And Chief, if you want to begin your presentation.
Great, thank you. Wrong way. This is the PD's budget presentation for FY21. Our overall goal is always to maintain the quality of life and safety of those living and visiting the city of Ridgecrest. Our staffing, it hasn't changed in several years. Current staffing, we're allocated for 32 sworn, 19 professional staff. Currently, we have 105 volunteers. That's our PACT organization, reserve officers, explorers, and they do a great job, but we'll talk about them a little bit later. These are our department functions broken down. Animal control, our volunteer organizations, traffic unit, code enforcement, patrol division, investigations, dispatch, and our school resource officer program. This is our organizational chart, staffing chart broken down. And if you have any questions, just feel free to jump in and just ask me as we're going through, if I'm going too fast or whatever. Last year, our total incidents, we handled 36,590 incidents. Calls for service were 23,657. Out of that, we arrested 2,555 people, and 729 of them were drug related.
How does that compare to the previous year?
It's a little lower, but you know, a lot of things aren't crimes like they were before either.
Right.
So those have changed.
What about traffic tickets? Are we?
Those are down also. It's different. You know, traffic. You know, citations are, you know, meant to correct action. So, you know, it's our community. We don't go out there and do it as punishment. We do it as correction. So, if we have a problem area, we try to focus on it and correct that action in that area. So, but they are down. But it depends on the time and what's going on at that.
We don't get any
time.
really any revenue from
No.
that.
No,
It all
there
goes
is
to
no
state.
quota, no, barely any revenue from that. So, yeah, those are myths.
It all goes to the state, I think, doesn't it?
Yeah, very large portions go elsewhere. Very little come back here. So our crime trends, we decreased by 0.4% last year. Our total Part 1 crimes were 970, down from 974 the prior year. And you'll see in the next chart, it kind of flip-flopped from the year before. It'll be actually the chart after this one.
What is Part 1 crime?
I'll show you in the
Okay, thank you.
next ones here. I'll show you. As you can see by the graph there, 2014, as we've talked in previous years, the lowest year in a long time. And then after that, it starts spiking. Those were the years when, you know, all of the major bills were passed that affected laws regarding criminal justice and
Criminals no longer stay in jail.
yes, correct, and you know, changed what are crimes and changed the punishment and stuff like that. So you can see the effect it's had. Many of these, you know. These are the Part 1 crimes list. So you have, you know, homicides, robberies, sexual assaults. Those are your violent, classified as violent crimes. Then thefts, burglaries, auto thefts, arsons, property crime types. So from the year prior, they're just kind of flip-flop. One was up, one was down, so they kind of flip-flopped this year.
But our
the,
sexual assaults this year were
remained the same,
The exact
but
same number?
it's different reporting.
Okay.
FBI changed the way that we have to report everything under their new standards. So it includes a lot more things that you have to
So
report
basically,
as
if anybody
sexual assault.
claims it, you have to report it as that, like we talked about last year?
Correct. It's
Okay.
not just what we think, is just a sexual assault. It incorporates some other things into that
Okay.
we have to now report as such to the FBI. Any questions on any of this?
The thefts increasing, do we have certain group of individuals that, or just we've seen an increase in that?
Could you say that again?
The thefts, did we have, I think one year we had a string of auto, we had a group of people that were going around doing auto robberies. The thefts, is it just happened to increase, or do we have a group doing?
And it does depend on, depends on economics, what's going on at that time. Whether it's going to be, if you see a rash of thefts, usually there is an economic downturn and thefts will be higher. So it really depends on what's going on in the world really at that time, on what drives a lot of the different crimes. So, but there is times though when you do get a group, which we've had in the past, where we can identify one specific problem and attribute it to a group of people that were out committing those specific things. In this case, I would say that we really didn't have one specific crime spree that was targeted by a group of individuals. So I would just say it's no, I can't think of it being a specific incidents out there just of one group of people doing a crime spree or anything.
On burglaries, what percentage do we actually catch the burglars? Because my experience has been very low.
It depends on the property, number one, how identifiable the property is, and records that are kept by the property owner is very helpful. Serial numbers, pictures help us immensely. Obviously, like a burglary where they go in and take jewelry, most people don't have pictures of their jewelry, so a white metal ring, that's very popular. So when you get, a large amount of those rings, it's hard to trace back to somebody that it was specifically theirs. Whereas a generator with a serial number on it is very easy to trace back to that person that had that piece of equipment. So a lot of that depends on, one, how identifiable the property is, and how quickly they get rid of it, and if it stays here or not, or if it goes out of town. And if they got away from the scene prior to and didn't leave any evidence at all, then you kind of rely on somebody giving them up. So a lot of times that's how we get our information, is somebody else will say, hey, this is who's doing it, and we'll work that angle and hopefully get them that way. So a lot of times it is difficult to catch them, because if there's no workable evidence, it's very difficult. cameras are a great help as well. If you can get good quality, with not pixelated, high def type cameras, which are fairly cheap now, that's probably the number one deterrent and our number one aid. So I highly recommend cameras are great. So these are the, just the numbers off the chart there. And so our average calls per day is about 65. Then we do about 12,000 plus an officer-initiated calls or incidents a year. Those could be your traffic stops, contacting citizens, various things, whatever the officers are doing self-initiated.
65 calls a day. Is there a time I was just trying to think, how many can you possibly do in an hour? And is there a time frame that most of them are in the afternoon or in the evening, or one of the things the evening, but
Yeah, it depends. Sometimes the afternoons usually tend to be a little busier, and then into the evenings. But then there's times that it could be busy the whole time for 24 hours. So it depends.
as few officers as we have to do 65 calls a day. Wow.
But that's average. In the wintertime, February, cold, windy, you might handle a lot less than that. But in the summertime, you might do 150 that day. So it just depends. Traffic accidents. We're down 2 traffic accidents this year. We did have the 1 fatality this year, and when the whole COVID thing started, I think people thought it was Mad Max time. They were driving extremely fast, so we had to slow them down. We had some pretty good accidents there in front of McDonald's, so but they've seemed to come back and slow down. So some of our challenges, obviously, with what's going on right now, between COVID-19, they've already released about an estimated 3,500 prisoners due to COVID-19, plus the thousands that the governor's already released. And due to the state's budget, he is talking about closing 2 current operating prisons, and on top of that, we're going to a 0 bail, and we're not sure what that's going to look like. So the state is going, they're trying to reduce the prison population, obviously, to fix a lot of the budget problems, and that's putting a lot of those guys on the street to one, hopefully try to find jobs, or if they have mental health issues, there's no services for them. The mental health system's already taxed, so we'll be dealing with them. And then, with what's going on right now, the future of law enforcement, who knows? Recruitment's going to be really tough for these next few years. I could see that.
Well, dealing with prisoners, they kick the prisoners out of jail, then tell them to wear a mask.
Yeah. Yeah, so.
Chief, I got a quick question.
Sure.
Has there been specific talk about which prisons are going to be closed down?
I don't think he said, but I haven't seen that.
I think he did mention.
Oh, did he
which
mention
ones
it
they were,
now?
but I don't remember which ones they were.
Yeah.
And then these 3,500 prisoners, that just, spread evenly across the state, or is there primarily specific crimes that, they're eliminating? How is this process playing out?
Yeah,
And
To be
I'm not trying to put you on the
frank-
spot. I know
Oh,
it's,
no, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
I mean, to be frank, they say specific crimes, but it's not true.
right.
We've seen everybody let out pretty much. So they've said specific crimes, and then when you hear of somebody that shouldn't have been let out, you know, we had an incident, a year ago, 2 years, time flies, so I'm not sure when it was, but down in Lancaster, 100 miles away from us. He shouldn't have been out due to, but they released him on, and he shouldn't have been out, and he ended up killing somebody down in Lancaster, but you hear about that all the time. So they say they're only releasing certain ones, but then, it doesn't seem like it's very long. We hear about somebody that shouldn't have gotten out, but they are.
And that's just spread.
I think they're just releasing whoever.
And that's just spread evenly throughout the state.
Yeah. Yeah. As far as I know, I think they're releasing them from whatever prisons that they need to reduce the population at. And I know that there's talk of eliminating some of the private prisons, and of which we have some right here in our own county, and that's going to put a burden on some of our own sister cities on the other side of the hill. So
Thanks, Shane.
our strategy, to maintain our current staffing, we have great officers here. When we know of somebody, we, direct our enforcement to our known criminals, those that are out doing crime sprees. We will direct our enforcement toward them. Address juvenile crime. Our teen court, Devin, he was our teen court coordinator. He was awesome. He's was going to leave, but kind of got stuck here now with COVID-19, so we'll see what happens. But and then our SROs at the schools, they're huge. They're our first interaction, with the juveniles. So continue to focus on the juveniles to prevent, them from becoming future clients, hopefully. And then focus our efforts on solving the serious and violent crimes. And we're always looking for ways to become more efficient and effective, whether it be technology or through anything. We'll try anything to become more effective. So, and I don't think it's any more evident how we work with other agencies. The earthquake is a perfect example, and or our SIT operations and everything. We work well with everybody, and I think it also, at the last one there, our involvement with the community, not only with our volunteers, but the community as a whole is, we try to do as much as that as possible, any way we can, whether it's trying to help somebody with cancer or just throw away a party in the park. So, it's, we take pride in that, and we'll continue that as much as we can. These are some of the things that we do in the community. We have over 15,000 now on Facebook. All of them probably aren't from here, but that's okay. We'll take them too. The pig that we had probably got us at least 1,000 of those followers. And we've started other social media platforms, Instagram and Twitter. We're not too advanced on that part yet, but we'll get there. The action committee, we've tried to have our meetings there, but every time it seems to or one got canceled this year for the spring, but Youth advisory, that's another challenging one, so we're looking for alternative formats for that. And then, our volunteer organizations and some of the other ones I already talked about.
With the action committee, could we still, since we didn't get to have our spring one, have kind of the end of the year wrap up one?
Yeah,
Just
I
'cause
think
I think it's,
Now we
since we
could
only have
probably
it,
do
yeah.
one easily now.
okay, since we only have it twice a year, and I
Yeah.
just feel like it's always good to kind of hear beginning of the year issues through the end of the year, and I know it
Yeah.
got cut short this year, but.
Yeah. The only bad thing is at the end of the year, it'll probably be, I don't know, they were on computers, so
Yeah.
that'd be tough. And then our Citizens Academy, one of the things that we're going to try to do this year is with our NRA grants that we received the past couple of years, we were able to upgrade the range quite a bit and get some equipment. So we're going to not only try to do some shoots out there with the with Women's Days, but also we had this conversation the other day, Councilman Blades and I and some others, but maybe get some of the younger adults out there and get them involved and try to get them out to and then get them involved with us. So might be a way to get them out. So just an idea.
Yeah, I know I would have been excited to be at a gun range, hanging out with the police when I was younger. That would be cool if that can work out.
And then PACT, those guys, all of our volunteers are amazing, but they have about 98 people, including those that help take care of the animals out there, and our chaplain program. They did over 12,000 hours last year. CERT, or Community Emergency Response Team, they have about 20 active members. They did over 2,300 hours this year, and there were a few of them during the earthquake that one of them, well, there was a couple, but one in particular, I didn't see her leave the whole time. In fact, she was sleeping in her car in the parking lot, and then she'd come back in. So she was here for days on end. And then our reserve program, 55 or a little over 4,500 hours. So if you go off the national average of $24.69 an hour for volunteer hours, they contribute over $473,000 worth of services to the city. I mean, that's huge. So we couldn't do it without them. And then our budget, there's the increase of PERS and workman's comp, as always, every year. This year, as Mr. Strand said, we need to start replacing some of the patrol vehicles. And our budget, which is mostly salaries, and the materials, service and supplies, capital, and our ISF fleet, which is fuel and things like that. Measure V, those are the positions that we have, and the other is in case we have to send somebody to the academy, and then doing the background process, which is lengthy, and medical, psych, and polygraph tests. And so the 4 vehicles, which are contingent if the budget remains whole, and then the radios that go in the vehicles, and if we get somebody one that's we feel can handle a dog, which is quite a task in itself. We have budgeted, but again, these are all contingent on if the budget remains, so we probably won't look at this for several months down the road.
I had a quick question.
Sure.
Because I had noticed at the beginning spreadsheet, it showed the Prop 172 grant. Last year, we got 162,000 this year, and it showed 0 for this year. And so I was just curious, are we not getting that grant, or do we not know yet?
No, we get it. It's just, last year I had budgeted it for the carport project, so I didn't budget any for that. And the only thing that I put in there this year was for that specific thing.
Okay. And then the law enforcement impact fee, that was also for the carport, the 110K?
Oh, you know what, never mind, that's the one I did for that, yeah, sorry.
Okay, that's what I was confused by. Okay, so but both of those showed zeros for this year, and so I was wondering.
Yeah, on those projects there, we didn't budget any for that, so.
Okay.
For any project of, the only project that we have this year as far as, that I budgeted for is vehicles. We don't have any projects like, no fence projects, no carport projects, nothing like that this year.
And then the other question I had was, normally every year we have the annual kind of celebration for the whole department, and we get to have that this year.
Well, we had it planned.
I know. So, but we're gonna still make sure that
Yeah.
we do something for them.
Yeah, we're still, actually, it'll probably be, hopefully, well, it's only a month away now, I guess, exactly a month away, so probably 4th of July timeframe now is, if we're open back up, hopefully, we'll try to do something around then.
Okay.
But we did have it planned for, May.
Yeah. And then something that we also didn't talk about, and I was just curious, because I've heard about it in other areas, like, have we noticed any increase in gang issues in our town at all, or anything like that? I know we've had, and we also normally talk about the tagging and how
Yeah.
many calls that guy.
Yeah,
did.
tagging, we had a problem with tagging. We identified him, arrested him. It was one person that we believe he was doing the majority, if not all, he was doing the majority of it. And we caught him several months ago, and then there was a couple new things that popped up, over the last couple of days with the protests that are currently going on. They were related to, similar to that, not sure who it is or if they're just trying to, draw attention to that, or what they're trying to do with that. So as far as gangs go, no, still no, we've always had gang members, just no formal gangs. We'll have people move up here that are, part of a gang somewhere else, and, but we don't have any like active, formal gangs that actively do things here.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, one more thing, Chief. Do you have, I'm sure you went across it and I didn't see it. Do you have enough money in your budget to do?
No.
The youth, no, definitely not. Definitely not, I'm sure. An appropriate amount of money for training, all the training that you believe you need to do. I'm sure that you have a curriculum throughout the year that you're meeting, you have required training, and I'm sure that just bringing up the word training, you cringe because it's never ending. But
Yeah.
With the national conversation going on right now, it's an ever-present thing. You have given me an answer personally, and I appreciated it. It was sufficient, and
Yeah.
you guys do a great job. I just want to make sure that we talk about that now.
Yeah, one of the problems that happened this year with the lockdown, we were scheduled out. We have to do mandatory training all the time. So with that, we schedule everybody out because you have to, there's no way to send everybody at once. So obviously with the lockdown, we had people scheduled to go to their mandated training. And now with that gone, there's still nothing rescheduled. So we'll have to figure that out. But we've also planned for that now, reached out to other agencies that have some of these instructors and they're willing to come over here. So one, that will reduce our cost a lot. And then that will also provide us the ability to utilize some of that to bring in some training here, such as leadership training, de-escalation training, and things such as that, which is important to keep those going. And it builds a better officer, builds a better person. So we'll have the ability to do some of those things. And the one thing about California is, I saw a thing today, and the name escapes me. It's something 8 that one of the legislators came out with that they want to see. And the funny thing is, this is somewhere else in the country. We're pretty much already there. California is. So with the new use of force stuff that came out this past year, California is pretty much already there. And so our guys are pretty much there anyway. But
that was exactly what I was
you always
referring to,
continue to move forward and continue to be reminded about these things. And the nice thing is here in Ridgecrest, with our community, we have some great community leaders that are always willing to come in themselves and talk to the officers, and many of them are members of our volunteer organization. So our officers have the ability to talk to these leaders of every ethnic group, and they're always in our station. And I know that when Mr. Strand was the chief, we talked about this all the time. One of the things about becoming a volunteer in our organization, you have access to our department. You can come and go as you please. We give you that access, so you have the ability to, there's never an excuse that you can't say that you don't know what's behind our walls. That's not true. We give you that ability to come and go out of our department as you want. And, so we have that access. So to answer your question, is there enough money for training? No. But I'll always take more money. But I think it's sufficient, sir.
Chad, I'd like to ask a question. When I first became involved with city government, there was a gentleman who used to come to city council long before I was on it, who consistently proclaimed the need for police cameras. And there was a lot of work that you all had done looking into that, and it wasn't just the cameras, it was how you keep them all up, how you keep track of all the information, how many years did you store it, and things like that. Given what's happening in the United States today, is there any need for that here and now? And clearly you have plenty of money, so you could do it, right?
And that is a huge cost and a huge financial investment. When they first came out, everybody thought that was the catch-all, the cat's meow to the problem solver, and they quickly found out that it's not, because it only catches a small portion of, it's only, right in front of you. And however, there are huge advantages, there's disadvantages. One of the major disadvantages is the cost, and it's not just the initial cost, it's the gift that keeps giving. The storage of the files, the redaction of the files, you pretty much have to have a full-time person. And to manage the storage, manage the redaction, and all of those for the PRA requests and the DA, the files that have to go to the DA and the public defenders and the defense attorneys. So the cost is huge, and I don't remember what, I had all the statistics when we did this a few years ago. LAPD, when they incorporated theirs, they initially thought it was going to cost X amount of dollars, and by the end of that year, it was several million more than they even anticipated. So I can look into them if you want. I mean,
No,
it's
I was
a
just
bit of a
wondering.
study, but we can do it again.
It's
a matter of there's a lot out there. Everybody seems to be doing one specific one. It's a cloud. Everybody's doing a cloud-based thing now. But I can get those answers for you if you'd like.
Well, the only thing I was concerned about is so many times the videos that people shoot of what is happening gives, as you point out, that specific point of what is happening, but it doesn't show what's happening around, and no camera short of 10 different ones on a person could possibly catch everything that happens.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering if there's something, if you see the need for that, and what the implications are for our officers. And I don't want to belabor the point, but I just would be interested to see if there's any need for that here. I
Okay.
don't see it, but I just remember this gentleman who every council meeting would get up and say that, and I'm thinking I wanted to go, sorry.
Yeah, no, there are advantages, and there's advantages and disadvantages to everything. So, you know what? I will do reach out and to a couple of these, and then I will come back.
If
It probably won't be the
technology has
17th,
changed.
but give
Yeah.
me a little
Well,
while,
Yeah.
okay?
And
And I'll get you guys some info on it.
I had an additional question, just because of it coming up so much right now too.
Mhm.
I would be interested to see if there are grant programs that start coming out, or if there already are, because it's been oppressed for a few years, that maybe that helps subsidize some of the costs, because, like you said, there could be benefits to our officers if we did have videos. So it's just something that, when we looked at it however many years ago, it's
Yeah.
advanced a lot more, and so maybe, and if there's more grant programs available.
Okay. Yeah, new law. They just passed a new law. It just came out this week, that you can no longer charge to redact digital evidence. So you're doing that for free now. So any of those redactions of PRAs that come in to do those videos, if you have 5 officers there, and the scene is an hour long, so now you have those 5 hours of video that have to be redacted.
You're talking about $100,000 a year for the program. You're
Just,
talking
yeah.
a body plus software plus storage. So it's fairly significant.
Yeah.
I understand. Thank you.
And, yeah, I will bring it back probably first part of next month, if that's okay. Any other questions? Projects, like I said, the only real major one we had last year was the carport in the back lot. It's back there. We are learning. We become construction guys, so we sent the plans back to, so should be done this month though. So hopefully we will have it done. One of the other things that's going on the carport, Melissa helped us with the electric vehicle charger grant. That will also be incorporated back there with the carport, so that'll be nice. Then we'll work on trying to get some grants for some electric vehicles. Fee changes this year for us. ACO, one of the things that we didn't have, and it's not that we have them very often, but when we have to call out animal control for a house that maybe has, I mean, we've had them where, there's hundreds and hundreds of cats or animals, and it takes them days to clean these out. So some type of a way to recoup some of that cost. So, but for some of them, it's only, below 2 hours, so, increase those fees so that we can recoup some of those costs. And then anything after the 2 hours, those rare incidents like those houses, then it'd just be at the regular overtime rate. Then some of our other fees are, the big ones are the handicap fees. We talked about these last year, and they keep going up. So you told me to max them out. They're still not quite maxed out, but as you can see, as you get into the second and third, they get pretty steep, and that covers not only just the handicap space, but it also covers when somebody parks and blocks the access ramp or within 3 feet of a disabled person. So, like if they had the van with the side door and they can't get their ramp down or anything like that. So all those are incorporated in different sections in the code, but it's all the same fees.
Why did the conceal go up double?
We just going off of the average about what everybody else is, just to remain with what everybody else is doing in the county. That's comparing it to everybody else, and we do a lot of them, so they take quite a bit of time, take a lot of records time. So just, to recoup some of the costs of doing business in there. And yeah, they've really kept going. Over the past year, the CCWs have increased quite a bit. So
Do we have, can you share how many CCWs?
I
do you
can,
have?
yeah,
You
I
have?
don't have it off the top of my
Okay.
head, but I will. I'll
Just
bring it
curious.
back on the 17th. I mean,
Thanks.
So how many citations do we issue for people parking in handicap spots?
It's not many. Everybody here is pretty good. Once in a while we'll get called, but a lot of times they're already moved. But there are those rare occasions it'll just be blatant. But then the other thing is, if they do have a placard and they just hadn't put it in the window, when they come down, then we just, as long as they got that placard, then they're okay. You can drop it down, but, and reduce it, but they have the placard, why do that? One of the other things that we need to incorporate is the taxi inspections. We haven't had this in our system before. We're supposed to inspect these cabs. Obviously, we don't have a way. We'd have to probably talk to Danny and have him do it, or require them to just bring in from a shop, a regular shop certification, If they did that, then, you know, obviously they wouldn't have to pay our thing as long as they had the things checked off on the list. But if Danny does it, we have to have a way to recoup his costs of checking the brakes and things like that, putting it on the rack and all those things. But we have to inspect them to make sure they're safe for operation. And we haven't had the means to do that according to what we're supposed to do in the code.
And Chief, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
How does Uber and Lyft fall into that?
We are currently working on that policy as we speak. So,
Okay.
yeah, there was some Uber had fought several cities when they tried to make them do that, but then there's been some legislation since then. So, and then what the other thing that we didn't have, but we would get a hold of was, so we put it in, was we get a lot of requests to do, you know, blocking roads for commercials and stuff like that, just like CHP does and everything. And so we have to calculate everything out. And so we just put it in there so everybody knows what we're going to be at. It's going to be at our fully burdened overtime rate. And then our fleet maintenance, we're at about 240 this next year. So we got, you know, 90K, which we've pretty much maintained for the past couple years. And our tires are maintained at right about 15.5 per year. And then I'll go through this a little bit. I'm not, this is just the one slide on this, but for some that don't know, a few years ago, we started a vehicle refurbishing program with the Crown Vics, and it has worked out great. We redid 10 of them, and we basically saved their lives, and we milked them along. So average miles we have on these vehicles now is about 268,000 miles, with our highest one being 303. So right now we have 2,684,000 miles on these cars. That's 107 times around the world on these Crown Vics. And it's not that, you know, you can keep replacing the engines and those things, but it's the rest of the car that's wearing out. The bodies, the wiring, and you know, those things are starting to just not make it anymore. So, you know, we still milk them along, and we'll milk them as long as we need to, but they're going to be, at some point, they're just going to cost, it's not worth fixing, they just cost too much. So, but we do milk them along.
So Chief, earlier we talked about, I think you said you were going to wait to buy new cars, but how long are you going to have to wait, do you think? Where are you going to snap that line?
I mean, we'll continue to, you know, fix these until, until we know that the budget's okay. Look, I would rather fix these cars than have to lay somebody off. And, you know, if that means we have to wait to get brand new cars because we have to, you know, replace a door panel or something, then, you know, we'll replace a door panel all day long. And,
What- So I know one thing that has been talked about previously is like the Crown Vics, like that car was a beast, obviously.
yeah, it was.
And I've noticed a lot of people have talked about the cars that they're coming out with now just don't last nearly as long.
That's true.
And can't handle the wear and tear. And so is there still not really any good options for police cars? Are there Crown Vics out there that or because it's getting so old now, there's just nothing out there available?
Well, I mean, I'm sure there's there's no new Crown Vics out there anymore.
Right.
They don't make it. I mean, there's probably older Crown Vics that are out there that haven't had, done what we've done to ours. That could be done, but what manufacturers do is they stop making parts for these cars. And sooner or later, there just won't be parts anymore. And then you'll be putting, the parts out of a junkyard, or we'll keep the car and then we'll strip that thing until we've used everything up. But we've done that too. And, but we'll milk these things until, we have to.
But what do we think
But
we're
you're
going to
right,
replace?
the new ones just don't hold up. They're not, they don't take the beating, but, the manufacturers have seen that was an issue with some of these cars, and I think they're trying to fix that problem. And I don't know about the new ones because we don't have they just came out with a new model of the Fords, and we don't have one of those yet, so I can't speak as to its durability, but I
Are
know
we
that
gonna
the older
look at,
ones
like,
kind of didn't.
Would we get a couple different kinds and see how they work for us, or are we going to just get one kind? That's what I was kind of trying to get at too, is
There's really, there's only two.
two options.
Yeah, you get the Ford or the Tahoe.
Okay.
And the Tahoe is what we use for our Watch Commander car only because it's bigger. They can fit all the gear that's needed in it. We go with the Fords because, number one, they're local. And we just think that's the right thing, is to, make sure that we buy them from Jim Charlon Ford right here. And they treat us great and they service them. And Dodge does make one, but we don't have a Dodge dealer. And, it's just not, it's the right thing to do is to buy the Fords. And I'm not sure that we've never had the Dodge, so I don't know how it holds up. I can only go off of what, other agencies say. And I think everybody is in the same boat. They're all about the same.
Okay.
The other thing, and I didn't put it in slides, but I made sure I wrote it down, is the grants that we did last year was our OTS grants, OHV grant, our DOJ grant to update our emergency operations centers, and the DOJ grant we just did last night to upgrade our COVID response. The tobacco grant for SRO outreach for in the schools and the community, and our bulletproof vest grant, and then the one I just talked about, the electrical vehicle charging station grant. And we'll continue to look for every grant that's out there if we can get them. So, and then with that, I'll take any more questions you may have.
Public, if you'd like to call in and talk to the chief with your questions, please do so now. Council, do any of you have any other questions?
I had one more question, Chief. The code enforcement, does that usually fall under your numbers as well? I assume like
What was it, code
code
enforcement?
enforcement is like a gray area. I'm just not sure where it falls.
Yes, it falls under me.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Do you have a question about it?
Yeah, I was just trying to imagine. I know that earlier in the year, it seemed like you had picked up a new code enforcement officer.
Yeah.
Had we seen any kind of increase in revenue?
The what?
Have we seen an increase in revenue? You
From him?
know,
Increase in revenue as?
just going around code citations.
Not yet, as far as citations go. During the COVID thing, we didn't really want to be out there citing a bunch of people.
Sure.
We have sent a lot of letters. He's been very successful in getting a lot of sidewalks repaired. He's currently working on a house that's very blight, and we've had several complaints on. I'm sure you guys know which one it is. In fact, we're working with our law firm right now on that residence and should have that resolved hopefully here soon. So those are the projects, but he will definitely, pick that up. He's had direction to make sure that some of the, shall I say, overgrown yards and things like that get taken care of. But we do give an opportunity before we issue citations.
Oh,
and
of
most,
course.
you know what, in our community, we get, it's a very high, once we send the letter, people are more apt to just comply. It's a very high compliance rate. So not very often does he have to issue the citation, but he will if he has to.
Thank you.
Does
I
he
have a-
drive around looking for sidewalk repairs or?
Yes. Yeah.
Because I noticed the other day I was coming up.
We had a
South
few
Norma,
more
there's
pop the other day.
There's a real big buckle on South Norma on the east side.
South Norma? Oh, over here? Okay.
Then-
Yeah, I just noticed a new one too. I took a picture for him.
The other thing, because of I've had some people ask, do they do code violations for the backyards as well? Just with the increase in like rat problems and
The problem with the backyards, it depends on if we can see it from, in other words, we can't look over the backyard by using any device or anything like that. In other words, I have to be able to just see it unless the person lets us in and just, if we knock on the door and say, hey, we've got some complaints about your backyard, would you mind letting us see? And things like that. Or we'd have to write an inspection warrant or things like that. So we can't just go like put a ladder up there and then look over.
Right.
It's against the law for us. So, but there's different ways. So if they get complaints, let us know. We will definitely go out and talk to them.
and then the other question I had someone ask me was like, are those always anonymous too? Like if someone turns someone in, they don't know who turned them in.
Yeah, I mean, you can be anonymous. I mean, they can call his number directly and leave a tip. They wouldn't even have to leave their name. But if we need to reach back out to them, to have them, to keep in contact, to help us further along. Now, to actually, use their name or something like that to, go into a report or anything like that. It depends on, what the, if it's a overgrown front yard, then no, they wouldn't have, you could call up and just say, the yard at 123 Main Street is overgrown, so you wouldn't have to leave your name or anything like that.
Okay.
But if it was like a major problem, maybe you would want that just so that it got taken care of and so that he could contact you. At least don't be anonymous to him. Tell him that, hey, make sure the neighbors don't know I did the calling type
Yeah.
thing.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other council comments? Public? Gary, I see none? Okay, none. All right then, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We'll go on to the next item. And that would be Matt.
Yep, IT.
All right. Evening, Mayor, members of council. Under technology, it looks like. Let's see here. My presentation is going to be really similar to last year's presentation. I've been working a lot with PD, other agencies on, system resilience, disaster recovery, planning for uncertain times here. So that's been a lot of the last week of the IT world. So it's a pretty thin, quick presentation, but I'll go into it a little bit further. Here's an overview of the services that we provide. As you'll see here, there's a very wide range of responsibilities that we have. Not just IT. There's with the council chambers, production and broadcast that Gary does, the phone systems administration. Those aren't things that you would see a typical IT department do. Oh, and also Mr. Patton, the solar field. I mean, I don't know any of my peers that have a solar field that they deal with. So it's fun because it's always different. And to talk on the solar field a little bit, I know that we had referenced that earlier. Whenever it was put in, it was a 496 kW system. It doesn't function at that much anymore because of degradation, cleaning, that type of stuff. We usually see it at mid 300s is about what we see it. I'm not sure what we use in power throughout the city, so I wouldn't be able to really compare those two. Obviously, city manager spoke to that, so he has a lot better pulse on that than I do. But speaking of that, as soon as I'm done here, I'm going to go in this, and I got to go over there too because I think that the earthquake last night actually had a little bit of impact over there. We have one of our arrays that isn't tracking, so we'll see what happens whenever we go out there. But to speak on this a little bit more and kind of where technology is, throughout the U.S. and throughout the world, and it's becoming a very specialized sector, and you'll see a lot of big technology. Their employees are no longer jack of all trade IT people anymore. They specialize in one specific thing, and so it's for smaller organizations. That's the challenge nowadays. And there's different mitigations that you could do. As smaller technology, you can move workloads and applications into the cloud. That's one of the things that you'll see some of them doing. You'll see them, just become more workaholics. That's kind of what we do around here. I don't want to be a jack of all trades IT guy. I want to be a master of all trades IT guy because that's fun. I find enjoyment in that, and so that's kind of what we do around here. But talking about body cams, that's one of the things. Like if we were going to expand our IT services into body cams, that's one thing that we would look to the cloud for something like that. So every single application and service that we provide, we kind of have to balance whether it makes more sense for on-prem or in the cloud, and just different deliveries. So that's where a lot of the thought process goes. In our division there. It is nice to be a small IT department because we're real agile. We can do things that other IT can't do, just because we don't have large impact to our users or to the public. So a lot of these bigger IT, they have to make sure that they have massive plans before they end up implementing anything. And so we can kind of have test environments and kind of be agile and implement things a little bit quicker than a lot of the bigger IT people. And so that's really nice. Here's our major accomplishments in 2020. And one thing that you'll see here is all of these accomplishments. The second one is a little bit off, but all of these accomplishments were in-house IT. There's no consultants. There's nobody outside that's doing that did these accomplishments except for IT in-house. So we're very and I'm proud of that. I think that's it shows the work that we can get done with two people. And so that's kind of a couple things that I wanted to touch on here was the earthquake. First off, my hat's off to all of the leadership for the earthquake. Especially my boss, chief. the minute that earthquake hits, it's funny because it's shock, then it's you check on your family, and then the first person I call is Gary, because it's like, hey, we got to go into planning phase or planning mode. You know, we have to jump in and we have to solve problems. We have to make sure that public safety is working. We have to make sure that services are provided. Information is disseminated. Those are the things that, you know, that's the check down. And every time that we had something, because we were here all the time, Chief would call us into the office. He's like, I need this done. I need it now. And we're like, yep, we're going to get it done, because that's the service that we want to provide to the organization and to the public. And I think that that's important, that we have the plans in place to be able to provide that. And I think that the earthquake really gave us a lead in to COVID. You know, it's another emergency, but we've been here, so it's not as much of a shock. So I mean, as sad as that sounds, like I don't want that to be the case moving forward. I'd like to not have those shocks and just go on with my job as I normally did before. But it's good because it has really been an eye opener for some of the things that we could do better, and some of the things that we do well. Like, I mean, it really solidified some partnerships with other agencies. Talking to the school district, and providing them providing us disaster recovery options, us doing the same for them, and leading into COVID, it was interesting. Whenever the governor did the stay-at-home order, you would think that everybody's got to stay at home. And so you're not going to really have the collaboration between people. I mean, that's your first thought. But it was the exact opposite for us in technology. Everybody reaches out to everybody else and say, hey, here's the problems. You lay them on the table. These are the issues. And everybody wants to solve those problems. And so it really brought people together. And that's one of the things with some of these disasters that I think that we don't look at as much as there's positives to take from them, and that that's, as long as we take the positives and move forward, then I think that we're going to be better off for it. Let's see if I have anything else on that. I think that's all I had here. Our fiscal year 2021 goals. You can see the goals, and then the funding source that's attached to each one of those goals, and you can see that a lot of our fiscal year 2021 goals are grant funded, and there's not a lot of general fund money that's going to those, which is going to be good. It's going to allow us to stay busy, get a lot of stuff done this next fiscal year, but not see a large growth in our budget. As of right now, we're nearing the end of the cycle of our desktops. They're in year 4. Usually, you'll see a life cycle of about 5-6 years of those. So, part of this next year will be prepping, internally for, hey, let's study our technologies. Let's make sure that we're going to implement the best solution whenever we do that refresh in the subsequent years. Our server infrastructure is currently in year 3, and so that's going to be on the horizon right after the desktop infrastructure. So you can see some of the CARES Act stuff, and really what we're trying to get is the mitigation of disease spread, and also enhance our remote presentation capabilities, our audio visuals, making it to where people can more efficiently work and collaborate offsite. So that was the thought process behind that. The Wi-Fi systems throughout City Hall, those are, they're probably about 12 years old, 10 to 12 years old. So it's going to be a rework of that, making sure that we have coverage across City Hall, the Kerr-McGee Center, some of our remote sites that we need. Replacement meeting room presentation computer. That one, that presentation computer was replaced whenever we did a little interim overhaul of the media room in 2012, and So that's 8 years. That's well past its life. It's been working well, but it's about time that guy gets replaced. Next Gen 911, we've already been in site walks and talks with Next Gen 911 and them providing the upgrade for police dispatch. Spoke a little bit earlier on the partnerships with peer organizations, kind of that were formed through disaster, and it's intriguing because to think that there could be more. You know, that's just kind of the surface of some of the things that we can do. Surveillance cameras, I remember installing some of those surveillance cameras as I came in 2006. So that's about the 2006 to 2010, I'd say, is the majority of the surveillance cameras that are there. The new ones are from the projects, the fencing project, the bus project, the courtyard project, whenever they did that. Those are a little bit newer. Those wouldn't get replaced, but that's about the timeline of those. The PDEOC, Chief talked to the grant of the PDEOC. There's going to be quite a few screens, some systems to be able to modernize both of the conference rooms downstairs to give them an emergency operations center that's more in tune with. It's something that they can use. As of right now, there's nothing that functions like that down in PD. We had talked about the CARES Act with the Chambers audio-visual upgrade. I mean, as you guys can see, the microphones and sound system, whenever I came in, it was 2006. I think it was 2000. Yeah, they were right in the middle of the project in 2006, so that's about how old each one of those microphones are. The production systems we changed in 2012. So, I mean, there's pretty much an idea of the age of it. These speakers are original. So that upgrade is one of those ones like the phone system upgrade was that you guys allowed us to do earlier. There's been so many upgrades over the last couple of years that have made me sleep so much better. This is going to be another one. I mean, just being down here, and I don't go to as many meetings as I'd like to because, you know, my wife is usually here and we got the kid issue. So, but being in here, I'm like, oh man, we can do a better job in here, and being able to utilize some of that money would be amazing for everybody involved, I believe. We had also talked about access control systems for no touch of ingress egress access to to the building, that type of stuff. But yeah, those are some of the goals for 2021. Here is the spreadsheet of my budget. As you can see, everybody is seeing an uptick of personnel expenditures due to PERS and that. So really, if you take out the personnel side of it, that's mostly benefits. There's no new positions, no new, just regular year-to-year merit increases. That the services and materials would actually be on par or down a little bit from the previous year. And that's the reason for that is that we are able to utilize secondary funding rather than general fund funding to do a lot of the projects in IT, which is great. So that's the reason that you see that. And that's all I have. I also messed up this last slide and I didn't put 2021. So there's the fiscal year 2020 technology budget report. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, I'm all ears.
Okay, thank you. Let me advise the public, if you'd like to address this issue, please call in now. And council, do any of you have any questions?
I just have a comment. I just always enjoy your excitement and enthusiasm about your job and appreciate what you do. And Gary for always supporting us, so thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, let me echo her statement, because I know that going through this COVID, like how fast you guys had to mobilize to make things happen. It was being here when you guys have been up all night and then still having to work through the next day. Yeah, so I appreciate that work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody? Okay, no calls? Gary? Okay. Well then, thank you very much.
Okay, Madam Mayor, last but certainly not least is Mr. Lauer for his presentation of streets, engineering, transit, and wastewater. And that should be the last presentation of the night.
Probably a long one though, huh?
No, he'll be quick. I don't know. I think the chief is vying for the crown.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Did Bard guess the latest time and then he'll drag it out to make sure you?
Okay.
What time did Bard put down?
I know.
10 o'clock.
Oh no.
Well, I'm leaving at 9, so you got an hour. You got an hour.
He said I'm last, so I can make it last long as I want. That's why he chose 10.
That's exactly what I said.
And if we find out for some reason that you're still talking and we're gone, it's okay.
I don't think they'll count that, though.
Yeah.
If you guys get up and
Don't
leave.
take offense if you're all alone in here at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll let you get started so we can get through this.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
So I need to check one thing before we start.
Mr. Lauer, before you start talking, can you come closer to the microphone?
I can.
Thank you.
Can we take an hour lunch break?
No. Better?
Yes, thank you.
All right. So, good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. Thanks for spending your evening discussing budget with us. Maybe that one. Maybe I guess I'm not all done yet. Okay. So, the Public Works Department consists of the following division. Engineering. Now, I had a discussion with somebody the other day, and they didn't understand what engineering was, so I want to make sure all of you do. It's the people that do all the design, monitor all the construction, they do, and they review development projects. Streets are the guys that maintain our roads and drainage infrastructure. Within streets is also fleet. Transit, obviously the bus system, and wastewater. Those are the real unsung heroes for during the earthquake, I'll tell you. So, we're going to talk about budget review of sources and expenditures. So, Public Works normally has revenues from the following major areas. Engineering has general fund, Measure V. Streets has gas tax, Measure V, and SB1. Transit has the Transit Development Act, Federal Transit Assistance, and SB1. Wastewater is an enterprise fund, and I'll explain what that is in a bit. So, engineering revenue sources and expenditures. Now, this is just within the engineering division. What I'll talk about is the revenue and what we normally spend it on. So we use general fund money. This is the engineering review of developer plans. We get reimbursed with developer fees in some cases. Measure V, we get matching funds for grants. Also fundings for phases of some projects. Funding for small construction projects. Yearly software updates such as AutoCAD and Street Saver. Pavement management. Now, this is absolutely new this last year. We hired an engineer one. We bought the Street Saver program. We are now doing our own pavement management within the department. Drainage impact fees. We're going to do Norman Bowman Culvert. You just heard about that last night. And traffic impact fees, we're doing the west side of Downs. So streets get revenue sources and expenditures. Gas tax, that pays for street lights and funds some of the salaries of the streets workers. Measure V funds materials used for street projects, funds some salaries for streets workers. Funds some of the personnel, materials, and equipment in the crack seal program. Funds some of the personnel, materials, and equipment used to repair the city streets for the slurry program. And funds some of the personnel and material costs for the in-house slurry seal program. Traffic impact fees were new last year, and we'll use a little bit more this year to do the medians. We have all the prep work done. We're just waiting to be able to get the people in to do the concrete work. SB1, so it funds some of the personnel, materials, and equipment to crack seal. Basically, it does the maintenance work. So we have the prepping for the slurry seal, and we have the in-house slurry seal program that's paid some of it by that. Transit revenue sources and expenditures. We have the TDA, which is the Transit Development Act. Under that TDA, we have the Local Transportation Fund,
which funds transit operations. So any funds that's not left over for transit operations are transferred to street operations. This can be anywhere as much as from $150,000 to $350,000 every year. State transit assistance funds operations, and SB1 funds operations. They also have the FTA, which is the Federal Transit Assistance, which is capital assistance. This is new buses. We actually have we didn't go with a new bus. We moved it to a van because a lot of times we don't have enough passengers to fill a whole bus. This is our very first hybrid van that we're getting. It is purchased. We're waiting for delivery, but the funds are carried over from 18-19. Our next new bus will come in 22, and we're hoping that we're going with all electric, and we'll come to that in a minute. FTA operating assistance funds transit operations. Kern County contract funds the operation of the county transit routes. These are the ones that go out into the county, the ones that go to Unicure, and the ones that go to Randsburg. Passenger fare box funds transit operations. Wastewater. Now, wastewater is an enterprise. This means that all the funds that are collected for wastewater are used exclusively for wastewater. So all homeowners and business pay for a wastewater treatment. The Navy has a contract for wastewater treatment. All the revenues that come in through that fund the operation and maintenance of the existing plant, the new putting money towards the new wastewater treatment plant, and replacement of an aging wastewater infrastructure such as pipes and manholes. Fleet revenues, sources, and expenditures. Now, this is an internal service fund, which means that all the money that funds fleet comes from inside the city. So we have general government, parks and rec, transportation, and public works that pay for the majority. The police department has their vehicle serviced from an outside agency because with just one mechanic, there was no way we could do it. So, but they do still fund their own gasoline through this source. A small SB1 grant to get new pumps so that we can fuel more than one diesel and one gas at a time. To carry over, we're in the process of putting that into place right now. Lighting and landscape districts, again, this is like an enterprise fund. All districts provide funding, takes care of the maintenance, funds the lights, and funds the required reporting every year. We just went through a long piece on that at the last two council meetings, so I won't go into any more detail. Drainage benefit, exactly the same thing, except there's no major funding expenditures expected for this fiscal year. Accomplishments and projected. This is the absolute fun part, because we get to tell you what we've done and what we plan to do. So, major accomplishments in engineering, construction. The east side of Downs is done. The Sunland is complete. Downs and Bowman traffic improvements are complete. Citywide crosswalks improvements are complete. The senior center renovation. Now, there's a lot of renovations inside, but this is what we had pictures of. The reconstruction of this parking lot is complete. And the sewer reconstruction at Bowman and Downs is complete. Now, it's hard to get a picture of the inside of a sewer, so I don't have any pictures of that one. But, you know, well, I could have, we don't have those, so, yeah. We're looking to buy one, though, for that. All right. So, all right. Engineering also takes care of development. That's where a lot of our general fund money goes. The engineering teams worked with community development on many different projects in the past year. Oasis, 2 different tracks for the rural ones, the Holiday Inn Express, they're in the grading right now. Town Place Suite, the grading plans are approved and they're getting ready to move. Red Rock Apartments, Panda Express, Mojave View, that's the affordable housing project on Normal, among others. But that's the main ones you all know about. So let's look at the major items that engineering is looking to do for construction. Now, Tamers, the construction begins in June. This is what it looks like right now. You can see that the left-hand side is fairly well worn out. The right-hand side doesn't exist. We're going to be taking the road from the curb line right there to the west, and it's going to go down to just past Inyo. And then one of the questions you should ask is, okay, the road coming towards us looks pretty bad too. Well, it didn't look so bad 2 years ago when we started this project and we did the environmental. So the environmental only went up to the end of and we figured we could get by with slurrying from there to Downs. Well, we looked at that earlier this year and go, yeah, that isn't going to work. So what we've done is we've added to another project that we'll talk about in a few minutes, but it'll finish from the curb line all the way to Downs as well.
Yeah, that's a fun street to drive on. Right?
It is not. I think he's being is that sarcasm?
No,
Never. Okay. So Dolphin, the construction begins soon. Basically, this is the little piece of paving that goes from College Heights to the end of the neighborhood there. This is a dirt road currently. This is a CMAQ grant, which is a Construction Mitigation Air Quality Grant. And what it'll do is it'll basically take the end of this road and go straight ahead. Eventually, towards the end, it moves to the left over where the gravel road is, and it will meet back up where it currently is. A good question you should ask is, well, why didn't you just take the right-of-way that exists and go out and connect it to Norma? Well, we tried, and they said, yeah, that doesn't work because we're not building new roads with a congestion and air quality grant. You can replace the dirt, but you don't get to build a new road. So we changed it back to there, and when somebody comes in to develop that, we will move the road over and connect it to Norma, like it's supposed to be. West side of Downs, construction begins in June. Now, I expect a great big yoo-hoo from Councilman Mauer because the poles are all empty. They're not down yet, but there are.
One pole still has a wire on it.
I went and looked at it the other day, and I didn't see that.
There's two poles right next to each other on the south end, and the south pole has a wire going across.
But it's a guy wire. It's not an actual cable that does anything. It's only one that keeps it from falling.
It does something.
It doesn't. It's not a transmission cable or anything that has to be moved. When they take the pole down, they can take that down too. So, but woohoo, you know.
It's only taken them a year to do that.
Yeah, I know. So actually, they really started the movement in January of this year, so it's not been terrible. But west side of Downs, the construction begins in June. So this is what it looks like currently. It shows the poles are empty, yay. And you can see that what the left side looks like is what the right side's going to look like when we get done. I'm sorry? Not at that point down by the school there will be. There will not be at the north end. There won't be a median because the trucks need to get into Mather Brothers. And with a median there, they can't. So there'll be, it'll be
putting a break in the median, so we're taking the median totally out.
completely.
Is that saving us money?
I'm sorry?
Is that saving money?
Well, we took it out before we went out to bid. So.
Oh, okay.
So ADA improvements on Ridgecrest Boulevard, it's out to bid right now. If you take a look, this is just one of them. Now, it's hard to imagine and get a good picture of this to really show you. But with the driveway going up and back, it gives like a three-dimensional throw when you actually go over that. So if you go over in a bicycle, it's a big woo. But if you go over it in a wheelchair, Lauren says he's actually seen not this one, but one along the stretch tip a wheelchair over because they got kind of skewed on it. This is one of the reasons we're doing this. Development, we're updating the design standards. It's in the budget for this year, and part of it's being taken care of by the LEAP grant. Major items for streets accomplishments. Now, we've moved off of construction, we're moving on to streets. Prepare roads for resurfacing for the slurry program. Slurry program completed the fall in 19 and the spring 20 is currently ongoing. Right now, the truck is down. There's an indicator on the engine light. They're getting Mr. Bertrand to trailer it to the dealership so we can get it fixed, and we're going to do 3 more streets this year when we get the truck back. Desert Mix quite a few streets. We prepared the medians for the China Lake, Norma, and a part of Drummond for concrete. Downs, we did a trial application of DG to cut down on the weeds. I noticed something on Facebook, I don't know, a couple of weeks back. I don't normally look at Facebook, but we put out what we were going to do this summer, so there was, I was looking at the comments for that. And somebody said, typical, government, they go out there and take 2 inches out and put 2 inches back. And this was on Downs. And what we were doing is we took out the dirt that tends to generate weeds, and we put back DG, which is crushed granite, basically. And it compacts very well and tends to inhibit weed growth. So we're trying that out to see. Now, the reason that we're doing that on Downs is because we can't cover it in concrete because of all the irrigation that's below. So if we have to dig up something because irrigation has a problem, you dig up the DG, which isn't terrible, and then you put it back and compact it again. So it's actually a fairly smart way to do that section. So routine maintenance. The one thing that nobody thinks about is these guys are out there every single day. They pothole patch, they sweep, they crack seal, they prep streets, they paint lines and legends. Hey, somebody was commenting that it would be really nice if they finally painted up, John. It got done today. Sign maintenance, desert mix cap, shoulder work, weeds along the roadways, etc. Actually, that takes a fair amount of time during the summers, just cutting the weeds down along the sidewalks so they don't cover the sidewalks so people can use them.
When is Drummond going to get painted?
Drummond?
In front of Chuck's track.
I don't know at this point in time. When's it going to get painted?
Striped. If you head east on Drummond.
Mm-hmm. But since he doesn't put the median in.
Second track, there's a right turn only thing on the street because the other half of the street didn't used to be there, but now it's there.
I don't honestly know, okay? So, map of the completed projects, slurry streets during the fall of 19 and the spring of 20, and the additional work projected for the spring of 2020.
Is that on our site now?
What?
Is it on the website?
No, it's not. I just finished it up a day ago, okay? So, this is the green is what we did in the spring and fall of 19. So this actually goes back into last fiscal year because this is the map we started with. But the green is what was done the first 2 seasons. The blue is what we've gotten done so far this season, and the purple is what we will finish when we get the truck back. So I'll leave that up there for just a second for everybody to look at. Now, one of the good questions again would be, why is there all that white in the middle of the blue? It's because the water company, we talked to them when we first started this project, and they said, hey, we've got to fix ones in there, and they all tie in at church. So we've paved 4 of them that they've gotten done. They finished 2 more after we got out of that section, and they haven't tied them all into church yet. So when they get them all tied into church, we'll do church. So that will probably happen fall or spring of this next year.
So one thing I've wondered about with this is, I mean, I know each season we want to be in one area, but one thing I've wondered is if it wouldn't be better to not just do 2 to 3 seasons, or now we're looking at 4 paving seasons in one neighborhood. The only reason why I'm saying that is because I don't think a lot of people know that we're doing this program. And if we maybe, hit the bad ones in this neighborhood and then went for the next paving season and hit bad ones in some of the other neighborhoods around town, then they would know that hope is on the way. And
the only areas that were not bad in this neighborhood were sections of church and California. All the rest of them had not been touched in 30 years. Yeah. This is why we started in this neighborhood. Right. So I understand what you're saying. We are, soon as, like I said, as soon as we get this one finished, we'll move on to different ones.
Now, in the fall, I think we're doing some up north of Los Flores, right?
Well, if you give me just a second.
Oh, you're going to show
we'll
those.
Get there, absolutely.
Because I would really like these maps on our website.
Yep. I understood it. Now that they're finished, I can do that. So, moving on. So this is the slurry truck, and this is them using it this year. As you can see, that takes there's quite a bit of handwork that goes in with this, besides just the truck. So this is Rancho and Wilson, 2 of the ones that we got done this year. So major items for streets new. Repair roads for the 2020-2021 program, the 2020 fall and 2021 spring slurry program. Purchase a new planer to improve the ride quality for the slurried streets. Now, what this is we have a milling machine that goes on our Bobcat, but this is a fine mill that will go on the Bobcat as well. It's more of a planer than a mill. What it will do is it will take off the high spots so we get a better ride on some of the roads. So we're going to purchase a second crack fill machine. One of the things that I keep telling council is we can only prep so much between the seasons. Well, with the second crack fill machine and maybe a couple more people next year, we'll be able to do more prep time between the seasons and be able to get more done when it comes to slurry. Because the blue that you saw there, that's what they had prepped this year. So that's what they got done. This is one of the places we're going to start in the fall, because like I said, I really do want to finish this neighborhood. Now, and that's if they get them all prepped. This is what Councilman Maurer was just saying a minute ago. This is also in the road program that we suggested to the RMRA that you guys approved. If we complete all the roads on the previous map, we'll move on to the ones shown here. If not, then in the spring of 2021. I'm guessing we'll be there in the fall, at least for some of them.
Now,
Some of those,
actually, Sierra View from Marianne North was done a year ago.
Yes, and we won't redo it. If it's done, we just, I know that it was done. So,
See, those streets haven't been touched in 40 years.
I know that, 30, but yes.
yeah.
Well, I'm not sure it hasn't been more than 30. Those houses in that area were built back in the 70s.
So, okay, so then I can't answer, but Les was telling me that these were slightly newer than the ones we did first. So, but these are the ones we'll start
Well, I
on.
would agree with that.
We will not re-slurry the one. Also, Felspar, they're talking about redoing that with the affordable housing grant, so that would come off the list as well, the one on the left, the Felspar on the left.
Redoing it.
With the, one of the things a couple of the things, we get quite a bit on the affordable housing grant, a couple of $1 million worth of upgrades, and one of them is paving Felspar.
Okay, the Norma housing project.
Yeah, and one of them is paving Felspar through there because it's in bad shape, and that's going to be a major bicycle route. There's going to be flashing crossings at both Norma and Downs for pedestrians and bicycles to cross with that project. So,
Hey, Bard, when you were talking, sorry, this is Kyle. And you don't have to turn around. I know
yes, I do.
it's awkward. You were talking about getting another machine, and you would need 2 additional folks. Is that what you were insinuating?
It was in this year's budget, but with the different, with the reductions in gas tax, the reductions in MEASUREV, et cetera, we thought it prudent not to hire them this year. If things come back, we'll ask you for them next year. Because what we'd like to do eventually is in another year or two, add a second slurry machine, because right now we lose half an hour to an hour while we go back and fill up after we do a street or two. So if we had 2, then that one comes up and is waiting, and they just go continuously. We'll up by half what we do every year.
Thank you.
Yeah, so, but that 2 people would allow us to man the second slurry machine as well. But it also takes 2 people to run a crack fill machine. And so if we had an extra 2 people, we would then be able to get half again as much prep done, because you still have to burn the weeds and you have to fill the potholes, et
And so
cetera.
that's all prep work. 'Cause I've heard you mention prep multiple times and how much that impacts the projects and timeline. So prep work is what exactly?
Well, if you go out and take a look at any of the roads we work on before we actually go out and work, before the season before. So go look at some of the streets in these neighborhoods that I'm showing right up here. What you'll see is that there's potholes along the edges. There's weeds growing in them. They need to be crack filled so that they give a good surface for the slurry, as well as preserve the slurry as long as possible.
Okay.
So it takes a lot longer to prep a road 10 or more times than it does to actually slurry the road.
Interesting. Okay. Thank you.
I have one question, just because if we reverse that order, instead of buying the machine and not having the people to operate it, if we did the people first, couldn't the people be out there using the current crack fill machine that we have and prepping with it while the other people are slurrying?
It would allow us to crack fill more and prep some more, because there's more involved than just the two people. But it takes a crew of 4 or 5 to prep a road, properly.
Right.
But, yeah, you're right, you could do that as well. But at this point in time, we didn't think it was in the best interest of the city or the streets division to hire the 2 extra people while the income is down.
Okay. But I was just saying, if when the time comes to look at purchasing the machine versus the people, I just didn't know if it made more sense to do people before.
The machine's 80, one is about that with benefits and everything.
Okay.
Maybe not quite that much, but yeah.
But she's got a good point. If people see we're out there doing something, that's better than them thinking we're not doing anything. So if they're out there filling cracks, at least it indicates that we care about their street.
I would agree. And that's one of the reasons the machine we can't purchase till later in the season anyway, because of the restrictions Ron has put on.
Well, right, and I agree with that.
So we'll buy the planer first anyway, because then we can use that for prepping stuff this spring, maybe. And then the cracks will probably come towards the end of the fiscal year. And plus, it'll take a while to get it built. Ready? So, one thing I mentioned earlier was the paving program. Now, one of the things with this was this was supposed to be a 2020 paving program. It's now in the design. So we will not be spending the $1 million this year. That's part of the reason for the carryover that you guys ask about. And it will probably go out to bid this fall, and it'll either get done this fall or next spring. These streets are actually going to be repaved, not slurry. These streets are beyond what slurry can take care of. Actually, I'm just going to read it. Aileen from Graff to Ewing, Fairview from Argus to Coso, Gold Canyon from Ridgecrest to California, Panamint from Balsam to Sanders, Purdue from Aileen to Wayne, Sanders from Argus to Coso, Silver Ridge from Ridgecrest to California. By the way, that's the reason those 2 streets were not colored for the fall, because they're going to be repaved. Tamarisk, now this is the end of the curb and gutter to Down Street, Warner from Argus to Coso, and Wilson from Sunland to Henry. Also, the cross pan at Henry will be replaced because it's pumping water. So we need to get that fixed. So it's currently in the design stages. We should make, this is somewhere, we're estimating between $9 and $1.1 million worth of paving. There's curb and gutter on a little bit of it. We're going to do the curb and gutter on Reeves to prep it for the next time we do one of these. Because right now PG&E is still tearing up stuff on Reeves, and we want to wait till they're done. All right, moving on to transit. Any questions on streets before I move on from you guys?
So, when's the last time the public works or the employees have had a raise? As far as the guys doing the streets?
Have any of them gotten merit increases?
Oh, of course. But a lot of them are up at the top. They've been here a long time as well.
So we're current on it? I said we're current on the.
Yes,
merit?
everybody's gotten steps for the last several years when they deserve them.
Okay.
Can we add, because I've heard this a couple different times, some of them, because they've been here for so long, they're at the top of their ladder, and they can't even be eligible for a merit increase then. If you added another level, can you do that, or how does that work?
You can't do that because of the MOUs that we have. We would have to redo those, and I believe
That's with the unions to
Yes.
clarify. Okay.
I believe there's also something with, I'm not too familiar with the HR rules on that, but I believe there's a limit as to what you can have.
One of the things we were talking about, and we haven't discussed it at the budget level because of all the reductions this year, is maybe giving the two operators a couple of % when they're doing the slurry work.
So the reason I was asking was, before we talk about buying a new machine and expanding more, are we, caught up on,
Yeah,
on the
yes,
pay
we
side
are
of
on
it?
that. Now, the thing to remember is a machine and crack fill machines and stuff are one-time expenditures.
But you still got to
Anytime-
have the guys to run them, and if we're spreading out, I'm just wanting to make sure that we're covered on the other end of it and keeping everybody current on the pay raise. So I think you answered that.
Now,
but the
you got to
second,
remember, though, nobody's gotten a raise in 12 years.
Well, clarify, because when we say that, it sounds like no
Nobody's
one's-
gotten a cost of living raise.
Okay,
There we go,
thank you.
sorry.
and so and that's part of my concern, that we don't expand out, just doing more of the same and spreading ourselves, continuing to, not address that end of it. But, so the other question I had on Tamarisk, I wasn't quite clear on the two directions that we're looking at fixing on that road. So we have the westbound side on the
No,
north side, the
yeah.
north half, heading west. That's going to be all new because there's no road there currently. And now on the east side, on the south end of it,
That's
you're
going to
talking
be
about
all
replacing
new
that.
with this same
But what
project.
about the two other sections? Are we going to maintain the pavement that's there, or are we just doing the whole, or is Tamarask going to get completely redone?
Well, Tamara's over the next year, Tamara's between Downs and past Inyo will be completely redone,
Okay, pretty much the whole street.
but two different projects.
It's, so parts with the one that we've already approved, and then part will be with that $1 million.
Yes.
Okay.
Am I staying close enough to the mic? Okay.
So I had a question about the $1 million, because we haven't completed our pavement management study. How do we, and our last one's so old and wasn't completely accurate, how do we know that those are the highest priority?
Les and I went out, Les went out and suggested several different ones. We went out and looked at all the ones and picked out the ones that we judged to be the worst.
Okay. And then my other question is, I just want to make sure, like, as far as funding goes, that we are maxing out what we can do and spend for slurry seal, because those dollars go so much further than the full pavement.
They do, but because of, there was enough left over in the account to have $1 million more. We were doing everything we can do with slurry.
Okay.
So we
And that's, I
decided,
just wanted to clarify that. so-
yeah, we're not cutting back the slurry program at all.
Okay. Thank you.
Moving on to transit.
Well,
I'm
oh,
sorry.
sorry. So if you're switching to transit, then I had one more question.
Sure.
Because this was under Public Works, and I didn't see it in the presentation, so that's what I was kind of waiting for. Under the budget notes in our book, it says that we're looking at purchasing AutoCAD software with Measure V funds, and I have some reservations about using Measure V funds for software purchases. I can see the Street Saver pavement management software because that's directly tied to, but AutoCAD's more of a design feature, and so I just didn't know, and we haven't heard from our Measure V committee report yet, and I just could foresee that being something that they would pay.
Actually, they have not. There's a nice explanation in this year's report of why it's Measure V.
Okay.
I think it's just, if you want, I can send you that, or have the chairman of the committee send you that section if you'd like.
When are we hearing their report?
They hope to finish it at their next meeting,
Okay.
so I would say July-ish,
Okay. Thank you.
but I can't promise that because I just help the committee. So,
Thank you.
on to transit then. Mission statement, to provide our community a safe, friendly, and reliable transportation experience. I think that's a great great mission statement. They're in the process of purchasing a new bus van, which we talked about. It's hybrid. It's waiting on delivery. Investigating the use of alternate fuels. We're looking at switching to electricity. I mean, here in the desert, that's obviously the easiest and best way to go. The members attended their first Calac rodeo. They went on their own time, but we paid for the hotel room and the entry fees. But it was great. They placed very well. They learned a lot. There was a lot of training that weekend, 1 full day of training and 1 full day of rodeo. So, and they have a new logo. This is the new logo that they've come up with. Safe, friendly, reliable transportation. Ridgecrest Transit. So major item accomplishments for transit. No general fund was used to meet the fare bucks in 1920. New items. There's no general fund being asked for to meet the fare box. Now, there might be a shortage in the fare box because the gas fee might not be the same, but they're not being asked for. We're going to continue working towards increasing ridership and reducing operating costs. They're going to look at solar powers for future buses. We have a 2021 CMAQ project. Now, it's only on the contingency list, but it's likely that it will get funded, so we've go ahead and started with the design using transit funds to add solar power to the shade structure to allow for future electric buses. Major outreach items, Saracosa Community College, they had a big event. We actually offered free transit. We had a booth there. We have a good portion of our rides that actually go to the college. Randsburg Old West Days, we generally only have 1 or 2 people that ride, so we were looking to maybe increase that ridership. We provided transportation during Doc's visit, and then we do the trunk or treat every year just to make sure everybody remembers that Ridgecrest has a transit system. Moving on to wastewater. Transit questions from you guys?
Yes, I had one. Because we're looking at putting the solar panels on the bus shelters, are we going to make sure that we go through and paint all of the bus shelters? I know we painted the bus shelters out here.
Not solar on those bus shelters, on the shade structures that the buses sit under at the courtyard.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you for clarifying that, but I'd still also like to see that we go through and paint all of the bus shelters to make sure that they don't rust and go bad, and then we have
that's actually something we could think about doing right now while, where we don't have quite as many people riding.
Yeah, because we did them a few years ago, and it made a big difference out here, but we didn't do them in the rest of town.
Okay. Well, actually, the ones here were much older, and that would be a good reason, but sure. All right. Wastewater now?
Yes.
All right. Earthquake, July 4th and 5th, 2019. Now, one of the reasons I said earlier that these guys are the unsung heroes of the earthquake is they worked tirelessly, and we'll talk a little bit more about it here in a minute. So there was damage to the potable water system, electric systems, all 3 clarifiers, and one badly. And they managed to have the plant down for less than 1 whole day, and it was only because the electrical system that was 40 years old shorted out. Navy came in and helped, absolutely, but they managed to get it back running in less than a day. This is what the clarifier looked like after the second earthquake. Basically, what this does is those things you see wrapped around the spindle there are basically like small I-beams that run across the top and the bottom. They take the solids, the scum off the top and move it to one end, and they take the sludge off the bottom and move it into a place where it's removed. Basically wrapped themselves around things. The chain broke. It was an absolute mess.
That's not the way it's supposed to look. Right?
It's not the way it's supposed to look. Luckily, we generally reorder the parts, and they had not come in yet because we rebuild the clarifiers once every year, and we order new parts, so they're there in case there's a problem. That was about 2 weeks before they came in again. We'd order them after we rebuilt, and they were still in transit. So new, we're going to keep the 1946 plant working. Now, there's rumors that there's actually pieces of old battleships in that plant. It's updated in 1973. We got to keep the aging infrastructure working. Now, that's not just the plant, that's all the pipes and stuff that get it there. We need to complete an agreement with the Navy and move the construction forward with the new plant. We need to phase 2 of the sewer rehabilitation program. Construction phase scheduled for the spring of 2020-21. Work will concentrate on fixing sewer pipes and manholes with level 4 and 5 issues. Now, was supposed to be done this last year, but we put it on hold until after we've been able to evaluate the quake damage. We have 95% of that done. They need to get back in on the base, but it's been closed because of COVID, and they don't want to remobilize a second time. So we said, fine, we'll wait on our finish until we go back out on the base. We're currently filling 2 open wastewater trainee positions. You were kind enough to give us 2 last year, new ones, which would raise us up to 7 people total out there. And then we lost 2 people last year. So we're now training the replacements for those 2 people, and we're going to want to hire 2 more as soon as we have those properly trained. When we went through things this year with Lahontan, we found out we were supposed to have pre-treatment inspectors, people that are supposed to go out into the community and look at the different businesses and make sure what they're giving us fits within the parameters of what they're supposed to give us. So we're hiring 2 new pre-treatment inspectors. So 1 probably to begin with, but 2 eventually. That's one of the reasons when you look through our budget, you saw 3 new vehicles. We've got 2 new guys out there that we need vehicles for, and we've got another inspector coming in. So priced out new pickup trucks over here, and that's why they're in the budget. So, questions on wastewater?
So each person has to have a vehicle? We can't share any of the vehicles we have?
They do,
Okay.
okay? But they all, at times, have to go different directions. They're going out and taking care of this pond, or they're going to look at something in town, or whichever. So they're not asking for more vehicles than they actually need.
Okay. And then
They also inspect, when the new construction, we put in a sewer line, they actually have to come out. And by the way, they do that very well. A lot of times they will catch it on their lunch hour when they come into town to eat.
Yep.
Then the $160,000 for machinery and equipment, will we be able to reuse that, or is that a normal cost every year?
It's in there to cover when we have failures. We lost a major pump this year. We used the money for that. You got to remember, this plant is ancient to say the least. We try to have spare parts for everything on hand. So when that one went down this year, we used that money to replace it.
And then the $25,000 for the building, what's that for?
During the earthquake, I mean, I can talk about that for sure. Basically we lost all of our glassware. We lost a good portion of the building had to be put back together as opposed to, all the buildings out there are ancient as well. There are a lot of miscellaneous costs that go with that because things just fail.
And so those things, were they not covered under the earthquake?
They might be, but we had to replace it before we got any money back.
Okay.
Also, one thing to remember, it being an enterprise, if we don't spend it, it goes right back in again. It goes right back into the same fund
It stays into
again.
the fund. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify.
That's
for
quite
the
all right.
things.
I just thought I'd mention.
Thank you. Oh, can you explain what happened last night?
Sure.
Because I saw that they said that there was
I'm
damage
sorry,
to the waste.
I had to interrupt what we were doing last night to
Yeah, that's
talk
okay.
to talk to the chief operator. He went out and checked the plant after the earthquake. He called me back and says, "Hey, I don't have water to the lab, and I don't have water to the." Hang on a minute, it's going to take me a second. The clarifiers had water, but the sludge pumps didn't. When he went in this morning and checked it out, it was just a valve that needed to be replaced. So we're fine and up and running perfectly.
Before we ask, let me make sure the public, please call in at this time if you'd like to address any of these issues. All right, council, no calls, is that correct? Okay. Then, thank you.
Excellent.
Now, Madam Mayor, that concludes our budget presentation tonight. At this point in time, we'd like to entertain any potential changes the council may have. You know, if we need to meet again prior to the 17th for further direction. Staff is also available to answer questions, let's say between now and the 27th. If you're reviewing the budget, you got questions, staff will be more than happy to get back with you. So this is the time to, you know, is this good enough? Do we need another night to discuss this? So we can move
I'm
forward.
pretty pleased with what you've given us. There is very little that we had not understood, and if there was, you explained it well. I don't know how everyone else feels about it, but we have a balanced budget, and I think we owe staff a huge debt of gratitude to be able to come up with that.
Yeah, Sheree did a wonderful job, and staff.
All right, you.
Did you have to use a whip on these other guys?
Yeah, some of us were tardy in getting our stuff in, so. So how about we do this? If council is satisfied with what we have, because like I said, this is a living document. This obviously can change throughout the year. Staff will move forward with approval of this on the 17th, however, with the caveat that if, as you're going through this, we can answer whatever questions you have. In the meantime, we'd be more than welcome to do that, so.
I'm sure we may have some questions, because I don't know about the rest of you, but I only got to page 56. So I wasn't up to speed totally. And, but if we do, we know where to answer.
You didn't read this whole thing last night?
Heck, no. I was out driving around looking for damage.
If you get to, I'm sorry, Ron, but if you get to questions and they're about my areas, please just send them ahead of time, and I'll
You
be
bet.
happy to send you back answers.
So
You bet.
that was going to be a question I had, Ron. Would you rather us just submit questions via email?
I mean, you can do it either way. You can call on the phone. You can set an appointment. I mean, if you want to sit down with, let's say, the police department and go over the more minutia of the budget, or Sheree, you're more than welcome to. If it's a question you feel that you want the entire council to know about, then that's great. You can put it in an email. We can answer it to everybody. I guess it really depends on, you know, what your questions are. I know, Mr. Blades, you're new, so you probably have a whole lot more questions about what this looks like. I mean, it does take a lot to follow the money.
Sure.
Once you figure it out, it's easy to follow, but at first it's kind of difficult to figure out how the funds kind of interact. I'm more than willing to sit down with you, Sheree is, so if you have that level of questions, kind of understand how the budget, you know, kind of process goes. Other than that, yeah, like I said, we're available for any questions. But if during the 17th, during this time, if there are questions you want us to answer prior to moving the budget forward, we can. So.
No, thank
But
you.
just remember, you guys can come back at this budget anytime. I mean, you know, we do have our monthly finance meetings where we go over, you know, budgetary items, or quarterly we go over how the budget's progressing. So we're here to do whatever you guys want.
I would ask if you do email questions and and responses are emailed back to you, can you include all of us so that way we can learn something from whatever the questions you
Sure.
had and the responses?
Sure.
You can't send the questions to everybody, but we can
You
certainly
can
send the
send-
answer back.
You can send the questions
We
and
can-
answer.
Yeah, we
I
can.
thought you couldn't communicate to everybody.
Yeah, you can.
We
We
can't communicate to each other, but if we send, like, we can't make decisions, but if we have a question, we can tag everybody on our question, and then staff can respond to
I
everybody.
didn't know. Okay.
Yeah, we're good with that.
I thought it was just our
We
response.
just can't talk amongst each other.
Right.
Okay.
And by the
All
way,
right.
Bard, you're gonna lose because it's not gonna be taxed.
I know. That's all
Okay.
right. I don't mind.
All right,
Like, I'm
everybody,
happy.
then we're done.
Thank you.
Thank you all.